Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook. I sell devil fruits at American Comics. Chapter 51. Jin Bin is actually an iron fist. The letter can be said to have question marks all over his face, and he was caught off guard by this scene. This kind of thing, but he could never think of it anyway. But this seems to be able to explain why Jin He would find out about Hei Kong. It is not surprising that Iron Fist knows the secret of Hand Heihui. Call. Jin didn't talk nonsense with Zinduo, and punched Shin's heart cleanly. Boom. With a deep crash, Shin's body was thrown upside down by Jin Bing, hit the ground heavily, and lost his breath. His chest seemed to be hit by a big hammer, it was deeply sunken, his ribs were broken, and his heart burst. In addition, Jin Bing's high-temperature fists melted the flesh and blood, and directly exploded Shin's heart into a puddle of mud. Not even a god can save him. Jin Bing stepped forward slowly, looked down at Shin's body, and murmured, "Wesley, my friend, you can rest in peace now." How to deal with these corpses? A confidant asked Jin Bing for his opinion. Throw it into the sea. Jin Bin said casually, and then waited for others with bullseye, and left without looking back. Crash, crash, crash. In the quiet night, only the sound of splashing water could be heard continuously. Shin and the bodies of other ninjas were ruthlessly thrown into the cold sea water. After all Jin Bing's people left, the scene returned to silence. Only the cold wind blows, as if nothing happened. But suddenly, crash, there was another splash of water on the sea surface, but it was the dead Shin who suddenly opened his eyes. That's right, Shin was indeed killed by Jin Bing, but Shin was resurrected. Although Shin is not one of the 5 fingers of Shuheihui, Shin is one of the 5 fingers. Murakami's apprentice also plays a pivotal role in Shuheihui. He is also eligible to use the power of the keel, obtain eternal life, and resurrect from the dead. Jin Bin is actually an iron fist. This news must be reported. Shin swam to the shore from the icy sea, with an indescribable seriousness on his face. There are not many people who can be held and looked down upon by them, but Iron Fist is one of them anyway. Not only that, Iron Fist and their hand-and-hand association have very complicated origins. After all, their 5 fingers are traitors of Kunlun. And if you want to get more kills, you must use the power of an Iron Fist. Tekken is not just a weapon, it's a key. So after receiving such heavy news, how could Shin dare to be negligent? He immediately came to Madame Gao's secret stronghold, one of the 5 fingers of the hand and meeting, and came in front of Madame Gao. "Shin, you shouldn't have come to me." Mrs. Gao is gracefully holding a watercolor pen, dabbing on a picture of water lilies that is about to be formed. It can be seen that Mrs. Gao's attainments in painting are still very good. For convenience, we all have our own identities here. Mrs. Gao continued to speak leisurely. Her identity in Hell's Kitchen is from a fan vendor on Hong Kong Island, and Shin's identity here is from the Yakuza gang of Wa Kingdom. But in fact, they are the backbone of the hand and society. "I have something very important to report," Shin said to Mrs. Gao in a deep voice. Mrs. Gao also knew that it must not be a trivial matter for Shin to come here in person regardless of their principles, so she put away her paintbrush. Leaning on his own crutches, he left the drawing board and walked tremblingly in front of Shin. It really looks like an old lady who is too old to walk and can be blown down by a gust of wind. But if anyone really thinks this way, they are totally wrong. Only Shin knows what kind of terrifying power is contained in Mrs. Gao's body. 5 fingers can control a huge hand and meeting, not by age, but by real ability. "Tell me, what is it?" After sitting down in front of Shin, Mrs. Gao looked at Shin with a confident tone and asked. With the power of hand and meeting, Mrs. Gao is very confident that no matter what happens in Hell's Kitchen, she can handle it properly. "I found Iron Fist," Shin said to Madame Gao solemnly. "Really?" The calm Mrs. Gao couldn't help but raise her voice slightly. Iron Fist is really important to them, and they have been looking for a new Iron Fist for a long time without any news, so Mrs. Gao couldn't keep calm when she first heard the letter. "It's absolutely true, I saw it with my own eyes." Shin nodded heavily. "No, to be precise, I was killed by an Iron Fist." "Good." Mrs. Gao hit the ground heavily with the cane in her hand. "Where is the Iron Fist?" "It's in Hell's Kitchen." Shin didn't give a shit, and said directly to Mrs. Gao, "And we know him, and we have even dealt with him a lot. Jin Bin is an Iron Fist." Who? Mrs. Gao raised her brows directly, with a look of disbelief. Jin Bing. Is there a mistake? I know, I didn't think of it, but he is indeed an iron fist, his fist is glowing. Shin said to Mrs. Gao in a very sure tone. Mrs. Gao began to fall into deep thought. Shin has fought with Iron Fist, and was even killed by Iron Fist. Mrs. Gao thinks that Shin will admit the wrong person. But the identity of Iron Fist caught Mrs. Gao by surprise. However, after contemplating for a while, Mrs. Gao chose to accept the fact that since the letter has been confirmed, there is nothing wrong with it. Then another big question comes, why has Jin Bing been lurking in Hell's Kitchen? During this period of time, Jin has not concealed his identity and they have made false promises. Why did he suddenly reveal his identity at this time? What does the new Iron Fist want to do? There is another bad news, Tech and Mei have also found the identity of Hei Kong. Shin opened his mouth again, and said to Mrs. Gao in a deep voice, he asked me about Hei Kong's whereabouts. Did Iron Fist actually do such a thing? Madame Gao's face showed surprise again, she couldn't even sit still, and stood up directly. Black Sky is the ultimate weapon of their hands and clubs. They have been looking for Black Sky for endless years, just as they have been looking for dragon bones. Although Hei Kong has never been found, everyone in the hand and society believes that Hei Kong will bring them huge amounts of power. So, is this the reason for Iron Fist's sudden exposure? The ultimate weapon to get rid of hands and meetings ahead of time. Amazing. The Iron Fist of this term is really powerful. Devil Fruit Store. Alan's new album is a bit unsatisfactory. Luo Sha couldn't help shaking her head, a look of disappointment appeared on her face. God is so pitiful. When Luo Sha found out that there was Alan in the world he was reborn in, he was very, very excited. In his previous life, he liked listening to Alan's songs very much. It's just a pity that Alan has been a bit out of business these years, constantly spinning around in various variety shows, and has not released a new album for a long time. Luo Sha did not wait until death in her previous life. As a result, after being reborn, I saw, good guy, Alan is going to release a new album. Luo Sha's mood can be imagined. The other party's electronic album was purchased without any hesitation as soon as it was released. I originally planned to get intoxicated like before, but the quality is completely incomparable to the original. But even so, Alan's song is much better than those other songs. At least I can hear it. But although I was a little disappointed, Luo Sha was a fan of Alan. And to be honest, Luo Sha's disappointment is that Alan's song has deteriorated compared to before, but compared with others, it is still very good. After a little adjustment to this psychological gap, Luo Sha continued to appreciate the most awesome work. Until the wind chime at the door rang. Luo Sha just cheered up. But a woman in light blue jeans and a black jacket walked into the store. As soon as the woman came in, the smell of alcohol began to rush in. Moreover, the woman's hair is still messy, her face is not very good, and she looks listless. That state was exactly the same as when Luo Sha spent the whole night in the internet cafe. But when Luo Sha saw the woman's face clearly, she knew it. Jessica Jones. A decadent, goofy private eye. Since when is there a devil fruit shop here? Jessica Jones walked towards the store with a puzzled expression. Hello ma'am, welcome to the shop. Luo Sha politely greeted Jessica Jones and invited her into the store. Manager, what is a devil fruit? Why have I never heard of such a thing? Jessica Jones looked at Luo Sha curiously and asked. Wait a moment. Before Luo Sha could answer, Jessica Jones' eyes were attracted by the colorful devil fruits in the showcase. That's it. These are really weird things. Is this for eating? The fruit is naturally for eating. Luo Sha smiled at Jessica Jones. Don't they look very delicious? It's very weird. Jessica Jones couldn't help but interjected, but then changed the topic, but it seems that it is a very good choice to taste some weird things by chance. Jessica Jones is different from everyone else. She was controlled and enslaved by the Purple Man for a long time, and she did many things she didn't want to do. Although the Purple Man was dead, Jessica Jones still couldn't get out of her psychological shadow. She used alcohol and fights to numb herself all the year round, and lived in a daze. Now it's not easy to meet something that makes her feel novel. Then store manager, give me a devil fruit, let me taste the devil's taste. Jessica Jones' voice sounded again. She didn't even ask what a devil fruit is, and made a decision directly. It can be said that among all the guests Luo Sha has met, he is the most cheerful one. Each fruit in the store is different. I don't know which one the customer wants. Luo Sha looked at Jessica Jones with a smile and said, "Does it make a difference?" Jessica Jones was a little speechless, but she took a quick glance, finally pointed to one of the fruits, and said, "That's it. This one is a Superman-type sonic fruit, and the price is 3 million USD. Luo Sha glanced at the devil fruit that Jessica Jones was pointing at, and said to the other party, 3 million USD. Jessica Jones' voice suddenly rose an octave, and her eyes narrowed slightly. "Did you say it wrong or I heard it wrong? A fruit, you actually sell 3 million USD. A fruit costs 3 million United States dollars, what an international joke." "Guest, you heard me right. The price of the sonic fruit is 3 million United States dollars. Compared to the ability that this fruit can bring you, 3 million United States dollars is already very cheap." Luo Sha said to Jessica Jones solemnly. "Wait a minute, what sonic fruit? What ability? What are you talking about?" Jessica Jones was completely confused by Luo Sha. Head full of fog. "I don't know what to buy. What a nervous woman." Luo Sha complained slightly in her heart, but still politely explained to Jessica Jones, "Didn't the guest ask me what is a devil fruit before? Simply put, these are some fruits that can give people super ability after eating. Quote, and this sonic fruit is a fruit that allows people to obtain sonic attacks, so its selling price is only 3 million USD. You can get a super ability by eating it. This is ridiculous." Jessica Jones couldn't help but sneered, but soon the sneer at the corner of her mouth stagnated slightly. Because of her own super ability, it was confusing. It seems that after a car accident, she inexplicably turned into a female Superman. And Jessica Jones also knows that she is not the only freak. The person who brought her lifelong shadows and nightmares also has super ability. That's right, super ability is real. But how can humans obtain super ability? Jessica Jones is completely unclear on this point. While these thoughts flashed through her mind, the sneer at the corner of Jessica Jones' mouth slowly disappeared. She stared straight at Luo Sha. "Eating this fruit, can I really gain the ability to emit sound waves? How do I know what you said is true? The store has samples for tasting, and customers who eat the samples can get a 5-minute super ability." Luo Sha continued to talk to the other party. "Really? Then the store manager, where are the samples?" Jessica Jones asked immediately. Luo Sha didn't have any nonsense, took out the sample of the sound wave fruit, and handed it to Jessica Jones. Jessica Jones looked at the colorful fruit in her hand, and after a little hesitation, she ate it directly. In an instant, Jessica Jones immediately felt the changes in her body. This feeling, could it be, is this true? Jessica Jones showed a look of surprise and disbelief. Subconsciously, he opened his mouth and launched a sonic attack. "Guest, please wait a moment." When Luo Sha saw Jessica Jones' appearance, she immediately interrupted her helplessly. "I know the customers can't wait to experience the ability they just got, but small shops can't stand the customer's torment. Excuse me, manager." Jessica Jones also immediately realized that she was negligent, and hurriedly charged Luo Sha with a crime. Then, without waiting for Luo Sha to say anything else, she rushed out of the devil fruit shop and came to a tree on the side of the road outside the door. She took a deep breath, opened her mouth, and activated the ability. A sound wave actually shot out from his mouth, hitting the tree trunk in front of him directly. "I can't believe it, it's actually true." Jessica Jones' eyes widened suddenly, showing a look of shock. Even if she really confirmed this point, she still couldn't believe it anyway. This is a super ability, it's so easy to get it. To actually get it just by eating a bite of fruit. There was a huge wave in Jessica Jones' heart. Since the super ability can be obtained so easily, then that guy's super ability. As soon as this thought flashed through her mind, she couldn't get rid of it. Jessica Jones suddenly turned around and walked quickly to the devil fruit shop. "Shop manager, do you have the kind of fruit that can control other people's abilities?" Jessica Jones stared at Luo Sha, asking without blinking. Luo Sha knew what ability Jessica Jones was talking about, and he also knew who Jessica Jones was talking about, but he could only pretend not to know. What kind of control method? Can the guest be more specific? Give instructions orally. Jessica Jones adjusted her emotions before asking, I know a person who will obey no matter what he asks others to do, even if he asks that person to commit suicide. Sure enough, Jessica Jones was talking about the Purple Man. Frankly speaking, Purple Man's ability is indeed very against the sky. If you say a word casually, others will become Purple Man's puppet completely, as if they have been hit by Uchiha's illusion. Orally give orders to control. Small shops don't have this kind of devil fruit. Luo Sha shook his head. There's none. A look of disappointment appeared on Jessica Jones' face, but she didn't give up, and immediately couldn't help asking, then do you know of any other ways to obtain super abilities? I only know that eating the devil fruit from Shoutian can get super abilities. As for other ways, I'm sorry, customers, I don't know. Luo Sha shook her head, telling the truth. Jessica Jones was again disappointed, but soon relieved. Also, how can there be such a coincidence in the world? I just met a magical devil fruit shop at random. Is it the birthplace of the Purple Man? And Jessica Jones also remembers clearly that half a year ago, there was no such devil fruit shop here. Although she is often drunk, Jessica Jones is still very confident in her memory. Don't forget that she is a private detective. It's okay, I'm just asking casually, don't take it to heart. Jessica Jones then spread her hands. So what do you think of the Sonic Fruit customers? Luo Sha asked Jessica Jones with a smile at this time. Honestly, it's been great, it's been a big surprise to me. Jessica Jones was not stingy about praising Sonic Fruit, but finally changed the subject, but I'm sorry for the store manager, you should know that I'm not rich by looking at me, and my rent is even 2 months overdue if I didn't pay, the landlord almost kicked me out. This. Just talk nonsense with Jessica Jones, Luo Sha really ignored it, Jessica Jones is poor. If it's not 3 million, I'm afraid I won't even be able to pay out 3,000 yuan. Luo Sha carefully recalled the various heroes in Marvel. This one is probably the most down and out and the most troubled one, right? I'm sorry, store manager, I wasted your time and your samples. Jessica Jones continued to smile dryly at Luo Sha. In fact, don't say that you have no money, even if you were rich, Jessica Jones will never buy it. She doesn't want any shit super ability at all. If it wasn't for her super ability to be seen by the Purple Man, how could she become the plaything of the Purple Man? It's okay for customers, there is no righteousness in business. Luo Sha didn't take this kind of thing to heart, but smiled at Jessica Jones. Sorry. After Jessica Jones greeted Luo Sha, she didn't stay in the devil fruit shop any longer, and just turned around and left. This is also a poor man. Looking at the back of Jessica Jones, Luo Sha couldn't help sighing in her heart. Many heroes in Marvel have had a tragic past. For example, Iron Man once spent 3 inhumane months in a dark cave. Still with a man. In the case of a group of men watching. Not bad, but this kind of experience is nothing compared to the experience of Jessica Jones. Jessica Jones has completely become a plaything of the Purple Man. But Luo Sha didn't care about this kind of thing, he just sighed a little, and then quickly withdrew his thoughts. I left Jessica Jones behind and continued to listen to Alan's new album. But just halfway through the album, Luo Sha's concentration was interrupted again by the sound of wind chimes at the door. A very elegant-looking man in a suit and leather shoes walked into the store just like that. Luo Sha looked up, and a familiar face immediately came into view, making Luo Sha's pupils shrink slightly. Purple people. The visitor turned out to be Jessica Jones' old enemy, the Purple Man. Jessica Jones always thought that the Purple Man was dead, but in fact, the Purple Man was not dead at all. Luo Sha did not expect that just as Jessica Jones left on the front foot, the Purple Man came on the back foot. How could there be such a coincidence in the world? In an instant, Luo Sha's heart was filled with vigilance. This is a very dangerous, but also very perverted person. Even for Luo Sha, it was the same. Because the Purple Man controls other people's ability, so far there is no clear way to crack it. That woman who came here 20 minutes ago, the one in the black jacket and light blue jeans, do you know her? And why did she stay with you for so long? The Purple Man's voice interrupted Luo Sha's thoughts. He asked Luo Sha with a high-ranking attitude. It turned out that this guy had been following Jessica Jones. It didn't come by accident. Also at the same moment, Luo Sha immediately felt that an inexplicable force began to quickly take over her body. He is rapidly losing control of his own body. Oops. Luo Sha screamed in her heart that something was wrong, and things really happened as she feared most. The lunatic Zeren also attacked her. And he himself did not suffer any unexpected tricks. What to do? Luo Sha subconsciously tightened her ass at first, but soon came up with an idea. The purple man controls people by releasing toxins. Although this miraculous toxin is so illusory and shatters people's three views, it is still toxins no matter what. And if it's a toxin, it's easy to deal with. Just do it. Immediately afterwards, Luo Sha's eyes lit up suddenly, and with a thought, he quickly entered the elemental state. His whole person immediately turned into a gleaming golden man. Sure enough, Luo Sha immediately felt that she had regained her freedom at that moment. Luo Sha's thinking is correct. Since the way the purple people control people is poison, what would happen if the carrier of the poison's action did not exist? The purple man's ability is naturally useless. After elementalization, Luo Sha's entire body is full of photons, and there are no physiological cells, tissues, and other human biological tissues at all. The purple man's control is naturally broken. What happened? The purple man saw that the person in front of him, who was originally a good-looking person, was suddenly given a special golden light effect, and it could be said that his own eyeballs almost popped out. There was a huge wave in my heart, and I couldn't believe my eyes no matter what. You know, Iron Man has not been born in this time period of Marvel, and superhero is just a Captain America, that's all. Before the purple man met Jessica Jones, he even thought that he was the only super ability user in the world. So the shock in Zeren's heart can be imagined. Could it be, is this a mutant? But among those recorded mutants, there is no such a number one figure at all. The purple man can be said to have a confused face. But no matter what, now is not the time to think about these issues. Seeing Luo Sha transformed into light, Zeren immediately knew that this was a great god that he could not afford to provoke. The purple man didn't talk nonsense, and at that moment, he turned around decisively and ran away. 36 strategies, the best policy is to go. But it is a pity that now is not the time for Zeren to leave as he wants. Laugh. Luo Sha directly shot a beam of light at the purple man, and that beam of light directly sank into the purple man's body and disappeared. Because it was just a photon, the purple man didn't notice anything wrong, so he ran away in such a panic. Stopped a car at random, controlled the driver to drive as fast as possible, and drove as far as possible. After several traffic lights, the purple man let out a long sigh of relief. Call, who was that guy just now? Even thinking about it now, Zeren still feels panicked like an old dog. Although he wasn't sure if that light man would escape his control, he didn't dare to take the risk at all. That light man was really weird. And it is not uncommon for someone to be able to escape their own control. Jessica Jones has completely escaped the control of the purple man. It's just that Jessica Jones doesn't know it at all. Why did Jessica stay with that weirdo for so long? What the hell did they say? When the purple man thought of this, he became more and more uneasy. He immediately made a decision to send someone to investigate that strange man thoroughly. But for now, let's leave here first and return to the base camp of Hell's Kitchen. The city is too dangerous, you still have to go back to the countryside quickly. But what Zeren didn't know was that his every move was under Luo Sha's control. The photon in his body was accurately sensed by Luo Sha the whole time. No matter where the purple man was hiding, it was useless. Since the purple people have shot at him, how could Luo Sha let him go? It's just that in the devil fruit shop, it's not convenient to kill people. But the purple man had already been labeled as dead by Luo Sha. Manager, what is a devil fruit? Why does this fruit have such a strange name? A new customer came to the store. Luo Sha put away her thoughts and greeted the customer with enthusiasm. Hi, little sister, devil fruit is a very magical fruit, and each fruit contains a magical power. ... As if nothing had happened, Luo Sha received those visiting guests as usual, and played with pesticides and swiped short videos when she was free. Relaxed and comfortable as always. However, there are a lot of guests today, and usually there are only 20 or 30 natural visitors on weekdays. But today, there are obviously a lot more. Luo Sha knew it well, and those extra people seemed to be sent by the purple people to check their old background. Luo Sha didn't take it to heart either. He wasn't afraid of his affairs being known by the purple people, because it wouldn't change anything at all. Luo Sha had completely locked on the purple man's position, and at night, it was time for Luo Sha to harvest the other's life. Guests go slowly. After receiving the last customer, Luo Sha checked that it was almost time, and hurriedly closed the shop and left. Let's have a meal first. After the meal is finished, go collect the bill. Luo Sha happily made a decision. Hell's Kitchen. In a luxury private room of a luxury hotel. Eat the fruit that can give people super ability. How can there be such a thing in this world? There was still a look of surprise on the purple man's face. Even though people have been sent to confirm it repeatedly, the purple man still finds it so inconceivable. Can super ability be obtained so easily? Devil fruit, what kind of magical fruit is this? Think about the pain I experienced in my childhood, being treated as a guinea pig year after year for experiments, suffering unbearable pain for ordinary people, and wanting to die countless times. Thinking about how much he has paid so hard to obtain the current super ability, and then thinking about eating a bite of fruit can actually give people the super ability, let alone how unbalanced purple man is. Unfair. This is so unfair. Why do I have to suffer so much for my super ability? While the purple man was surprised by the devil fruit, a kind of distorted anger also arose in his heart. If he could, he really wanted to destroy that devil fruit store. Kill that young boss. But the purple man also knew that the owner of the devil fruit shop was definitely not an ordinary person. In the morning, the other party turned into a naked man. This scene, even now, made Zaren's heart difficult to calm down for a long time. Think long term. It's all about the long term. After calming down his mood, Zaren made such a decision. Although the light man looked very strange and terrifying, which made the purple man dare not go to provoke him for a while, but fortunately, the purple man's ability is to control others. He can use a large number of puppets to investigate without having to do it himself. This may be the only consolation. Wait until tomorrow. We can't send so many people there, lest that guy notice something. The purple man made a decision in his heart. Then he started to get up, went to the refrigerator and took out a bottle of whiskey, and put a few cubes of ice in the glass, poured half a glass of wine, and took a sip. The cool and refreshing feeling brought a certain degree of pleasure to the purple man. But what the purple man didn't know was that when he turned around to pour the wine, a large number of photons suddenly began to penetrate inside the crack of the door. Those photons quickly gathered together to form a human form. Gudong drank the wine in the glass, and the purple man wanted to pour another glass, but suddenly felt something was wrong. Why does the light in the room seem to have started to change? Especially the shadows projected by myself on the Fang Bing box in front of me and on the wall, flickering and flickering. It was as if there was some dynamic light genichi behind him. Not good. Reminiscent of the naked man I saw in the devil fruit shop before, the purple chrysanthemum immediately tensed up. He turned around abruptly, and his pupils shrank even more violently. Because behind the purple man, a man with a golden light all over his body was standing there with a golden knife. It's him. How did he find himself so quickly? Listen, everything before was a misunderstanding. The purple man immediately raised his hand and explained to Luo Sha. Laugh. However, Luo Sha didn't give the purple man any chance to explain. He pointed at the purple man directly, and a bullet of light was fired. All of a sudden, the purple man's head was pierced. Forehead. Zico let out a muffled hum, and his body went limp, and he fell directly to the ground. Luo Sha looked down at the purple man's body on the ground. His face was grim, he didn't say anything, the photons on his body kept radiating out. Just escaping through the crack of the window. The purple man's room was locked, and it was a completely closed environment. When the purple man's body was found in the future, it would become an unsolvable, secret room murder case. It's just a pity that there is no god-level detective like Sherlock Holmes in this world. Even if there is, it is impossible to deduce that someone turned into light and killed the purple man. The truth in this room will forever be buried in darkness. But this kind of matter has absolutely nothing to do with Luo Sha. Helen Zhao Research Center. Jennifer, have you recorded the data of the first 15 sets of experiments? Zhao Hailun was making settings on the control panel of the regeneration cradle, while casually asking the assistants around her. Drive Zhao, according to your instructions, the recording has been completed. Assistant Jennifer answered right away. Okay, very good. Helen Zhao nodded with great satisfaction. Now you should immediately conduct a chain analysis on these 15 sets of data, and don't forget to add the Abifin coefficient. Clear. While doing research and analysis with his assistant, another staff member in a white coat walked over. Drive Zhao, someone has come to make an appointment for treatment. The staff member said to Zhao Hailun. I'm not telling you. My experiments these days have reached a critical stage, so I will cancel all such appointments. Zhao Hailun frowned slightly, and said to the staff member. Recently, because of the healing fruit, there has been an endless stream of people seeking medical treatment, which has greatly delayed the progress of Zhao Hailun's experiment. It just so happens that the experiment has reached a critical stage in the past few days, and Zhao Hailun needs to personally check it. So Hailun Zhao has already confessed that she will not receive a doctor in the past few days, and she is not a full-time doctor. Drive Zhao, I was going to turn it down, but the other party said that he had an appointment with you, so I came to confirm with you. The staff said cautiously. If he did have a date with me, why didn't he contact me directly? Zhao Hailun almost laughed, and said to the staff angrily. He said he knew that your experiment had reached a critical stage and he didn't want to disturb you, so he. No one has an appointment for me, okay. The man told me, if Dr. Zhao has forgotten, let me remind you that he did ask you out and discussed with you the possibility of using the cradle of regeneration in the genetic field. Bruce. Zhao Helen's eyes suddenly lit up. What she still doesn't understand now is that the person who came to find her is none other than Bruce Banner. It had been almost a month since she last emailed Bruce Banner, who hadn't heard from him. Zhao Helen had long since given up hope and put this matter behind her. Unexpectedly, Bruce Banner suddenly came to visit him directly. Where are the others? Zhao Hailun immediately interrupted the staff and asked. He's here, in the reception room. The staff answered right away. Jennifer, keep your eyes on here first, I've already told you what you should pay attention to, right? Helen Zhao immediately said to Jennifer. Leave it to me, Dr. Zhao. Jennifer nodded immediately. Helen Zhao quickly came to the reception room, and sure enough, there she saw Bruce Banner, who looked much thinner and haggard, with a dusty face. And at the moment Bruce Banner is still wearing a tennis cap that doesn't match his own style, and there are 2 words written all over his face, embarrassment. Drive Zhao, long time no see. After seeing Helen Zhao, Bruce Banner took off his hat, stood up, and smiled at Helen Zhao. God, Bruce, what the hell happened? Helen Zhao looked Bruce Banner up and down, unable to believe her eyes. Is this still the well-educated and personable top scholar I know? The other party disappeared for a while. Did he go to escape? How could it be like this? But Helen Zhao vaguely understood why Bruce Banner was so difficult to contact. Obviously, the other party is going through a very bad predicament. Well, this matter is hard to explain in one word, you better not know it well, trust me. Bruce Banner shook his head and smiled at Helen Zhao helplessly. Bruce, I understand. I won't ask more questions. If you need any help from me, just let me know, okay? Zhao Hailun is naturally able to tell the difference between the serious and the serious. She didn't ask anything, but said to Bruce Banner very enthusiastically. Well, Zhao, I need your help right now, so I'm here. Bruce Banner spread his hands towards Helen Zhao, and said to Helen Zhao with a bitter face, last time you emailed me saying that you mastered a new method. Yes, Bruce. Zhao Hailun's eyes immediately sparkled. I'm not boasting, but I have indeed done many amazing things during this period of time. Yes, that's right, Zhao, you have created a lot of miracles during this time, even I know something about it, and some people even call you mutant. Bruce Banner couldn't help laughing, with a look of anticipation on his face. So, what's going on here? All of this stems from that magical devil fruit shop. Helen Zhao was very interested, and told Bruce Banner exactly how she saw the miracle of Deadpool's moon face being cured, and how she ate the healing fruit and obtained the healing ability. Devil fruit. Cure other people's ability. After Bruce Banner listened, he was stunned. Even if it wasn't for Helen Zhao who said these words to him, Bruce Banner couldn't help but sneered a long time ago. Can people get the fruit of super ability? Do you want to be so exaggerated? It's just ridiculous. Bruce, I know this sounds crazy. I had the same reaction as you when I first heard about devil fruits. Helen Zhao explained to Bruce Banner helplessly. Seeing Helen Zhao's serious and swearing look, Bruce Banner was even more at a loss. Could it be that what Helen Zhao said is true? Because he really couldn't figure out why Helen Zhao would fabricate such absurd lies to herself. Moreover, Bruce Banner also knew Helen Zhao. He knew that Helen Zhao was a rigorous and serious person, and he would not believe that the other party would talk nonsense to fool him. But devil fruit or something, it's really a bit of nonsense. Well, Bruce, the facts speak louder than words. It's useless to say more. I think there must be something wrong with your body, right? Let me try to treat you. How about it? Helen Zhao also knew that this kind of thing could not be convincing just by talking, so she suggested to Bruce Banner. Definitely, that's exactly what I'm here for. Bruce Banner shrugged his shoulders, and said with a definite expression on his face, I'm all yours today. Bruce, believe me, no matter what is wrong with your body, I will cure you. Helen Zhao said to Bruce Banner confidently, I have cured no less than 10 terminally ill people. I don't believe your problem is more serious. Zhao, I'm looking forward to it more and more, so what should I do now? Do I need to draw my blood? Seeing Helen Zhao's confident look, Bruce Banner felt more and more looking forward to it. No, there's no need to draw blood. I'm not relying on medical methods, Bruce. Helen Zhao smiled lightly at Bruce Banner, I just need your hand. My hand. Yes, your hand. As Helen Zhao spoke, she directly held Bruce Banner's hands, and then started to activate her ability. Helen Zhao knew Bruce Banner's physical condition immediately. Bruce Banner. He was confused by Zhao Hailun's actions, but he still suppressed his curiosity and doubts and let Zhao Hailun toss about. Bruce, your body is just a little sick. But soon, Zhao Hailun showed a puzzled look, your cervical spine, lumbar spine, and your lungs all have some problems. Besides, myopia and blood pressure are not big problems. As for the others, I didn't check it out. Cervical spine, lumbar spine, etc., are all old problems of Bruce Banner. There is no way it is caused by occupation. These are indeed just some minor problems. That's all. Bruce Banner hadn't come all the way here for these pettinesses. Moreover, Bruce Banner didn't think that Helen Zhao diagnosed these minor problems by holding her own hand, and those problems were common problems of some scientific researchers. Even if Zhao Hailun guessed it, it's nothing. Is there nothing else besides that? Bruce Banner stared at Helen Zhao and asked. Helen Zhao felt Bruce Banner's body carefully again, then shook her head. I didn't feel any other problems. Oh, by the way, I have helped you to cure all those problems just now. You're back to your 20-year-old physical condition now, Bruce. Helen Zhao smiled at Bruce Banner. Bruce Banner became more and more confused. He didn't believe Helen Zhao's words at all, and even felt that these words were so absurd. How could it be possible to cure your body's problems by shaking your own hand? But don't tell me, now he does feel that his body is much more comfortable than before. Zhao, are you serious? Sorry, I'm really confused now. Bruce Banner touched his head, frowned slightly, and stared at Helen Zhao. What's going on with all this? Wait a minute. Before Helen Zhao could say anything more, Bruce Banner was suddenly taken aback. If the problems of the lumbar and cervical spine were cured, he couldn't feel it intuitively, but he could clearly feel another change in Bruce Banner's body. Vision. The vision in front of him became clearer. It's like wearing myopia glasses. It is well known that Bruce Banner is myopic, but the degree is not too high, so Bruce Banner usually does not wear glasses. But when Bruce Banner does some scientific research, or other occasions that require concentration, he will wear myopia. Therefore, the world in Bruce Banner's vision is not so clear under normal circumstances. But now, Bruce Banner hurriedly took out the glasses he was carrying with him and buckled them on the bridge of his nose. He immediately felt that his clear vision suddenly became blurred. Instead, when he took off his glasses, his field of vision would become clear again. After repeated confirmation several times, Bruce Banner finally widened his eyes unbelievably. My eyes. Yes, Bruce, I just cured your myopia. Seeing Bruce Banner's surprised face, Helen Zhao couldn't help laughing on the sidelines. Myopia can be cured. Bruce Banner looked at Helen Zhao, who was covering her mouth and chuckling with incredulous eyes, and was speechless for a long time. Although myopia is not a serious disease, it cannot be cured without surgery. Even if it is surgery, it cannot be cured perfectly, and it will cause irreversible damage to the human eyeball. This is one of the important reasons why so many myopia do not choose to have surgery. But right here, Bruce Banner was only touched by Helen Zhao, that's all, myopia was cured. Immediate results. Effective immediately. This kind of thing is nothing short of a miracle. Bruce Banner was literally speechless. So, devil fruits are real. The ability you possess is also real. After a long time, Bruce Banner looked at Helen Zhao and murmured. At this moment, even though he felt unbelievable, even though he still couldn't believe it, Bruce Banner couldn't help but believe the iron-like facts before his eyes. What Zhao Helen said is true. Bruce, I told you a long time ago. Zhao Helen's face became more and more smug. But why do you say that I have no other problems with my body? It shouldn't be like this. Bruce Banner then said with a little excitement. Ordinary medicine can't heal his body, like the power of such a magical devil fruit, can't it? Is there any other way to cure him? Bruce, no matter what you have experienced or encountered, it makes you think that there is something wrong with your body, you are overthinking. I can tell you very clearly that you are very healthy now. Helen Zhao said to Bruce Banner in a very affirmative tone. No, Zhao, you don't understand. Bruce Banner shook his head. When he gets angry, he will turn into another monster who loses his mind and only knows how to smash everything. Is this not sick? Simply very sick. Do you suspect that something is wrong with your genes? Mutations. Helen Zhao saw Bruce Banner's appearance, and thought about the issues that Bruce Banner had discussed with her before, so she made a definite guess. It's not that simple, but, in a way, it's understandable. Bruce Banner thought about it carefully, and could only give such an explanation. Well, Zhao Helen knew it well. She smiled and said to Bruce Banner, Bruce, you don't have to worry. Gene mutations are not necessarily malignant, they may also be benign. According to my opinion, no matter what kind of mutation in the gene, it is not a disease. Bruce Banner was speechless. Isn't Hulk sick? He couldn't accept this. In his mind, Hulk was a disease that had ruined his life and he couldn't wait to be cured. Zhao, maybe you were right. From a pathological point of view, it is difficult to say what disease I have. Anyway, thank you. Bruce Banner said to Helen Zhao with some decadence and frustration. Originally, when Helen Zhao told him that he had mastered a new method, Bruce Banner still had great hopes. But as always, once again, hopes were dashed. Thank you for your time, Zhao, but I have to go. After confirming that Helen Zhao couldn't heal himself, Bruce Banner resolutely bid farewell to the other party. The father-in-law could find him at any time. The more he stayed here, the more risk Helen Zhao would be involved. Bruce, what happened? Zhao Hailun frowned and asked, and kindly suggested, maybe I can help you. Thank you, Zhao, but you can't help me. Bruce Banner said to Helen Zhao sternly, and emphasized, also, don't mention to anyone that I've been here. After explaining all this, Bruce Banner quickly turned around and walked out. Hey, Bruce. Helen Zhao stopped Bruce Banner from behind. Although I don't know what happened to you, and I don't know what answer you were looking for, but maybe you can go to the devil fruit store to see. I don't know who can help you, but I think if there is such a person, that's the most likely place. Devil fruit store. Bruce Banner's eyes flickered. ... Devil fruit store. Manager, I'm going to chase my dream. Bless me, if the response is good, they will shoot a commercial for me. They have already promised me. My road to stardom is just around the corner. Green Lantern, here I come. There are no customers in the store for the time being. Luo Sha is chatting with Deadpool boredly. Some time ago, Deadpool once told Luo Sha that he was going to sell facial masks for others, but Luo Sha didn't pay much attention to it. Unexpectedly, Deadpool was about to leave in a blink of an eye. Thinking about Deadpool's plan and development direction after selling the mask, Luo Sha is still full of expectations. Green Lantern, that was a bad movie that made Deadpool regret taking the time machine and going back to shoot himself. It is unexpected that Deadpool is so enthusiastic now. Come on Wade, you can do it. Your skin is the most perfect skin in the world, be confident. Luo Sha quickly replied to Deadpool's message. That's right, the store manager. I have a deep understanding of this. In fact, I will wear a mask when I come out now. Because I don't do this, there will be countless people asking me how to take care of my skin along the way, what mask I use, blah blah, it's annoying. How should I put it, an excellent man will always have troubles that others cannot understand. But I believe the store manager, you will understand me. Well, not bad, Deadpool actually learned to flatter. Luo Sha said that I am very relieved. Just as he was about to chat with Deadpool again, the wind chime rang at the door, and a new customer walked into the store. Let's not talk about Wade, here's a guest. Luo Sha quickly sent a voice message to Deadpool, and then put down the phone, planning to entertain new guests. But as soon as he looked up, he couldn't help being stunned. Green fat. No, it's Bruce Banner. This guy is definitely one of the ceilings of combat power in Marvel. A pair of fists hammered Thor hammered Loki, that's a vigorous, proper god-level figure. Luo Sha did not expect that such a person would come this time. Hello, guest, welcome to the store. Luo Sha walked out of the counter and greeted Bruce Banner with a smile. Hi store manager, I passed by here, and I was very curious when I saw the words devil fruit, so I came to have a look. Bruce Banner said to Luo Sha very politely. Considering his current embarrassing situation, Bruce Banner did not tell the truth to Luo Sha from the beginning, but chose to touch the situation temporarily. Welcome, guests, please come in. Luo Sha smiled and greeted Bruce Banner into her store. Thanks. Bruce Banner nodded to Luo Sha very politely, and then followed Luo Sha to the counter. His eyes were also immediately attracted by the strange and beautifully painted fruits on the counter. Manager, are these devil fruits? Bruce Banner looked at the devil fruit in the display case with a look of surprise. Even though Helen Zhao heard about the magic of devil fruits, it has to be said that the strange appearance of devil fruits was beyond Bruce Banner's expectations. Yes, guests, these are devil fruits, don't be fooled by their appearance, they are all very miraculous fruits. Luo Sha then briefly introduced the devil fruit to Bruce Banner. Bruce Banner was listening, but thinking quietly. Regarding the devil fruit, what the store manager said is exactly the same as what Zhao Hailun said. In addition, Bruce Banner has personally experienced Zhao Hailun's healing ability, so he also has a certain degree of trust. Although there are still doubts, at least there is a basis for acceptance. Guest, the fruits of the shop are all in this illustrated book, you can see if there is anything you like. So when Luo Sha handed him the illustrated book, Bruce Banner thanked Luo Sha, and then carefully checked the illustrated book. And look very carefully. During this period of time, Bruce Banner tried countless ways to cure Hulk's disease, but all of them failed without exception. And here is his last hope so far at level 1. Mama fruit. Mau fruit. What's all this mess? Oh, it turned out to be the animal fruit that the store manager said, which can turn people into animals. This fruit is completely useless to Bruce Banner. Bruce Banner quickly skipped over the fruits under this category, and began to look for another category, the devil fruit catalog under the Superman series. Tun fruit, sowing fruit, hormone fruit, silent fruit. Although these fruits looked miraculous and opened Bruce Banner's horizons, none of them could solve his problems. Bruce Banner at this stage. I'm afraid he has become Hulk. When Bruce Banner carefully searched for the answer in the illustrated book, Luo Sha looked at the haggard and slightly embarrassed Bruce Banner in front of her, and fell into thinking. And if so, Luo Sha carefully sorted out the devil fruits that are currently on the shelves in the system, and he couldn't help shaking his head secretly in his heart. Those fruits are relatively low-end fruits, and it is impossible to solve Bruce Banner's problem at all. Even if you look at the known devil fruits in Pirates, which fruit can solve Bruce Banner's problem? Luo Sha also thought secretly. Don't tell me, he really remembered one. While Bruce Banner's problem cannot be perfectly solved, it can be prevented and remedied to some extent. Fruit of the door. That's right, it is this fruit that can open the door and come in and out anytime, anywhere. With this fruit, Bruce Banner can escape quickly and rush to another safe place before Hulk is about to appear. Even the door of the door fruit is connected to a different space, and Hulk can fully vent his anger in that different space. Wait until you calm down and revert back to Bruce Banner, then reopen the door and come back. Definitely, this can only be remedied to a certain extent, and it does not perfectly solve Bruce Banner's problem. But in the end, there is a way. It's just a pity that Menman fruit is not yet on the shelves. Excuse me, store manager, does this include all the fruits? Bruce Banner's voice sounded, and he raised his head at this moment, looking at Luo Sha expectantly. He has read all the fruits, but unfortunately, none of the fruits can solve Hulk's problem. Yes, guest, all the fruits currently on the shelves are here. Just after saying this, Luo Sha saw a gloomy look on Bruce Banner's face. Have to. This last hope also failed. But customers don't have to worry, the store will continue to put many new fruits on the shelves in the future. If the current fruits do not satisfy the customers, I believe there will be fruits that will satisfy the customers in the future. But then, Luo Sha changed the subject and spoke to Bruce Banner confidently again. Bruce Banner's mood got a little bit of encouragement at this point. He couldn't wait to stare at Luo Sha and asked, "Then store manager, what kind of fruit will you put on the shelves next?" The next fruit on the shelves will have more categories, and at the same time, it will be more diverse and high level in ability. It is still very worth looking forward to. For example, the fruit of the door. Luo Sha directly said the fruit he had chosen for Bruce Banner in his mind. Menman fruit. Bruce Banner was slightly taken aback. Manager, what kind of fruit is this? This is a fruit that opens a door anywhere at will. For example, you are standing in front of me now, but you can open a door in the air in front of you at will, and then get in. Luo Sha gave a brief introduction to Bruce Banner. Bruce Banner's eyes lit up immediately. He could use this fruit. Manager, where does the door I opened lead to? Bruce Banner immediately stared at Luo Sha impatiently and asked. Lead to any place you want to go. Even, you don't have to go anywhere, because there is originally a strange different dimensional space inside the door. Luo Sha introduced Bruce Banner again. Bruce Banner couldn't help showing a look of excitement on his face. This fruit was exactly what he needed. If he really obtained the ability of the door fruit, wouldn't he be able to escape directly before transforming into Hulk? Hulk's problem is sort of solved. So store manager, are there any restrictions on using this ability to open the door? Bruce Banner forcibly suppressed the excitement in his heart, stared at Luo Sha again and asked. There are no restrictions, you can open the door anywhere you need, on stones, trees, water, air, and even in the human body. That's it. Bruce Banner felt he had come to the right place this time. Then the store manager, when will Menman fruits be available on the shelves? Bruce Banner swallowed a mouthful of saliva, fixed his eyes on Luo Sha, and asked expectantly. It's hard to say, but if the customer is really satisfied with Menman fruit, they can leave their contact information. When the door fruit is on the shelves, I will notify the guests. Luo Sha made a proposal to Bruce Banner. Bruce Banner showed a look of embarrassment. He is now being chased all over the world by his father-in-law, and he has no common contact information at all. They all change their contact methods every once in a while, no matter what phone calls, emails, or other means of communication. Even if he leaves it to Luo Sha, it is very likely that he will not be able to use it for a while. Shop manager, can I leave your contact information? For some special reasons, I don't have any fixed contact information yet. Bruce Banner forced a dry smile at Luo Sha, and said to Luo Sha with some embarrassment. Because his request is really weird, and to a certain extent, it seems a little impolite. However, Luo Sha didn't take this seriously. After all, he knew what kind of predicament Bruce Banner was in now. Definitely there is no problem. Luo Sha told Bruce Banner her contact information. Bruce Banner didn't even use pen and paper to memorize it, he just read it silently a few times, that's all. It can only be said that it is Bruce Banner. This memory is unconvincing, and he is indeed an academic master with 8 doctorates. By the way, the store manager, how much does it cost for Menmanguo? Bruce Banner looked at Luo Sha again and asked the most important question. Menman fruit is not currently on the shelves, so Luo Sha specifically entered the system to conduct some inquiries, and then made a quotation for Bruce Banner. The tentative price of Menman fruit is 80 million United States dollars, but the store will wait for a while. It does not support USD settlement, but uses gold settlement instead, and we will see the specific situation at that time. 80 million USD. Bruce Banner's pupils shrank sharply. This is an astronomical sum of money. Even if you have money at that time, you may not be able to buy it, you have to exchange it into gold. But think about the unfathomable things about the fruit of the door. Well, Bruce Banner thinks this is completely worth the money, and it can even be said that it is not expensive at all. If it is normal, Bruce Banner can still use his knowledge to earn this money. He is a super scientist with 8 PhDs, and it is not too difficult to get 80 million United States dollars. When it comes to science giants like Bruce Banner, it really means that knowledge is wealth. Just get some patents, sell some scientific research results and so on, it's all a waste of money. But the crux of the matter is that Bruce Banner is now a fugitive. This thing is a headache. It seems that a good plan must be carried out. Boss, I understand. I will be back again. After a quick thought, Bruce Banner made a decision, and he said to Luo Sha heavily, I'm looking forward to that day too. Luo Sha smiled at Bruce Banner. Then manager, goodbye. Bruce Banner waved goodbye to Luo Sha. Jingle, jingle. But at this moment, 2 pop cans were suddenly thrown in from outside the door, making a very crisp sound. Just when Luo Sha didn't know what was going on, she saw a lot of thick smoke coming out of the 2 soda cans. Gas bombs. Luo Sha still can't understand what's going on. This must be General Ross's people who found Bruce Banner and planned to capture Bruce Banner. It's just a pity that General Ross and others would never have thought that gas bombs would never have an effect on Bruce Banner, and the ideal situation of stunned and arrested Bruce Banner was simply impossible. Bruce Banner can be stunned, but Hulk can't. If there is no accident, isn't Hulk going to transform in his own shop? With Hulk's destructive power, can your own store withstand this kind of toss? While these thoughts were flashing through his mind, Luo Sha himself was not idle. Immediately, he stretched out his hand and fired 2 glowing bullets, and immediately fired the 2 gas bullets. The 2 gas bombs had just landed in his shop, and only a small amount of gas was ejected before flying out quickly. Manager, you. When Bruce Banner saw that Luo Sha could shoot light bullets with his bare hands, he couldn't help showing a look of surprise. Devil fruit. But soon, Bruce Banner reacted. Since the store manager sells devil fruits, why wouldn't he originally eat devil fruits? It is true. Devil fruits are real. Helen Zhao cured her short-sightedness before, and Luo Sha fired light bullets with her bare hands. At this moment, Bruce Wayne no longer had any doubts about the devil fruit. Guest, I believe you brought these troubles, right? Can I trouble you to leave quickly? Luo Sha didn't have the time to say anything to Bruce Banner, but quickly issued an exit order to Bruce Banner. True, after Luo Sha reached the level of General Huang Yuan, he already has a certain ability to protect himself in this world, and he is not afraid of the exposure of the devil fruit store, and this kind of exposure is inevitable, but this does not mean that Luo Sha just want to get involved in some troubles. The grievances between Bruce Banner and General Ross's family, let them solve it by themselves, the farther away from themselves, the better. But it's just that Luo Sha doesn't want to get involved in trouble, but it doesn't mean that he is afraid of trouble. This is also the reason why he blatantly shot the gas bomb and flew it out. He couldn't just let his shop be destroyed by Hulk, right? In fact, even without this trouble, from the moment Bruce Banner walked into his store, Luo Sha was destined to come into the sight of General Ross. It is impossible for General Ross not to investigate the store that Bruce Banner also patronized during his escape. That being the case, what else does Luo Sha have to worry about? I'm sorry, store manager, I'm now, cough cough cough. Bruce Banner accused Luo Sha of a crime, and then turned around and walked out. But the small amount of gas in the store still made Bruce Banner cough, making Luo Sha speechless. Will Hulk still appear in his store in the end? Fortunately, Luo Sha's luck was not that bad. Bruce Banner covered his mouth and nose, and ran out quickly. Jingle, jingle. Faintly, 2 more gas bombs were fired, and the outside of the street was immediately filled with a large amount of irritating white gas. The gas spread quickly, and soon spread to Luo Sha's devil fruit shop. Luo Sha shook his head helplessly, walked forward, and closed all the doors and windows, which slowed down the diffusion of those irritating gases. But even so, the doors and windows also have gaps, and it is impossible to be completely sealed, and some irritating gases still diffuse in along those gaps. Cough cough. It was so exciting that Luo Sha couldn't help coughing. Fortunately, he immediately entered the elemental state, freeing himself from the shackles of his body, so he was able to stand safely in the gas. Roar! A beast-like roar suddenly exploded outside, like a thunderclap on the ground, even shaking Luo Sha's windows and doors. It can be seen how strong the sonic vibration is and how loud the roar is. Luo Sha immediately understood. Hulk, here he is. Boom boom boom. Boom boom boom. Immediately afterwards, there was a burst of doomsday-like bangs, as if the entire earth was being continuously beaten by a big hammer, not to mention how frightening the sound was. Undoubtedly, the enraged Hulk started hammering everything around him. Chug chug, chug chug, and amid Hulk's angry sound of destroying everything, there is also such an extremely dense and constantly continuous gunshot. The densely packed bullets were shot at the big green guy so densely. It's just a pity that it can't do anything except arouse Hulk's anger. Roar! An angry roar sounded, and Hulk bounced a distance of tens of meters, and hit the ground like a meteorite, smashing the ground into a big crater. It landed in front of an M54 tactical assault vehicle so domineeringly. In the car, a soldier was holding the equipped Gatling with both hands, and frantically pouring bullets at Hulk. But the next moment, Hulk's fist fell heavily from the air and hit the assault vehicle hard, smashing the front of the assault vehicle flat. That soldier was directly hammered into a puddle of flesh, and he couldn't die anymore. Roar! Not counting that, Hulk followed up with another bison crash, which knocked over the assault vehicle all at once. Rumble! The assault vehicle was like a huge amount of meteorite, rolling forward on the ground, smashing another assault vehicle to the ground. The soldiers on the other assault vehicle who used Gatling to attack Hulk were also smashed into a pulp as the assault vehicle overturned. Seeing Hulk's brave and invincible scene, General Ross's complexion was not to mention how ugly, like an old chrysanthemum blooming in late autumn. General, we can't go on like this, our firepower can't stand it at all. A confidant beside him couldn't help but said to General Ross in a solemn voice. Let me go, General, let me go. Only I can deal with him. On the car next to General Ross, Bronsky, who was imprisoned on it, took the opportunity to volunteer to General Ross, isn't that what you brought me here for? How could General Ross not know this? Only monsters can deal with monsters. Bronsky, you got me into a lot of trouble last time. General Ross quickly made a decision. His eyes were like knives, and he just looked down at Bronsky. I know, but I won't this time, I promise. We've reached an agreement, haven't we? Besides, I don't want to be imprisoned in that ghost place again. Bronsky immediately said to Bronsky with a strong oath. It's good that you understand. I didn't get you out to cause trouble for myself. If you don't want to be imprisoned again, be honest. Also, think about your family. Think about them. After threatening Bronsky, General Ross winked at his confidant. The confidant knew it, and immediately went over and opened the door that closed Bronsky. Bronsky jumped out of the car, flexed his muscles, and strode directly towards Hulk. Hey guys, remember me? Bronsky just spread his arms out, yelling at Hulk. Cease fire. Everyone cease fire. The other soldiers, too, ceased fire under General Ross's orders, which made Bronsky stand out. Hulk noticed it immediately. Boom boom boom. Hulk rushed towards Bronsky and punched Bronsky hard. Snapped. The sound of fist collision sounded, but Hulk's fist was blocked by another huge amounts of fist. Hate. Debut. Boom boom boom. The two big guys just started a fierce personal battle on the street. It was like two human tanks, sweeping from here to there, and from there to here. Wherever it passed, it was like a tornado passing through, sweeping everything and destroying everything. What happened? The gunfire stopped, but the Hulk is still fighting. It sounds like there are two monsters outside. In the store, Luo Sha felt a little strange, but immediately realized that it must be disgusting. This guy is an old rival of the Hulk. But if it's hatred, it's quite troublesome. When two monsters fight, how long will it take? There is also a return to fight. Can I trouble you to go a little farther to fight? Luo Sha doesn't want to renovate her devil fruit store, which has only been open for a few months. However, the development of the matter is not based on Luo Sha's will. The devil fruit store was originally within the fighting range of the Hulk and the Abomination. Many stores around the devil fruit store have been smashed by the two monsters. Luo Sha's store was not spared in the end. Boom. During the fierce battle, Hate raised a car with both hands and slammed it at Hulk, knocking Hulk over in one fell swoop. Boom. With a loud bang, Hulk smashed the door of the Devil Fruit store like a cannonball. Just smashed into Luo Sha's shop. Luo Sha is a pain in the ass. However, what made Luo Sha even more painful was still to come, but Hulk was stunned by the abominable blow. He shook his head violently, and just got up from the ground. As soon as he looked up, he saw Luo Sha in front of him. Roar! Hulk was irrational. He saw a target standing in front of him, and instinctively rushed towards Luo Sha again. It seems that there is no other way. Luo Sha secretly sighed in her heart, and raised her feet decisively. Light speed kick. Chapter 61. Laugh. A blazing light flashed. It was Luo Sha's leg kicking at the speed of light. Hulk didn't realize what was going on at all, so he got kicked hard. Boom. Violent energy exploded, and Hulk's body was like a cannonball. He flew out of the store and hit the ground heavily. It is indeed the shining fruit of the general level of the yellow ape. It is really powerful. Withdrawing her right foot, Luo Sha couldn't help showing a very satisfied smile on her face. This is not ability training and development, but a real actual combat, and it can even be said to be Luo Sha's virgin battle. Unexpectedly, the kick was so amazing that even Hulk was kicked away. Luo Sha still felt very satisfied. Definitely, when Luo Sha stepped down, he was completely exposed to the sight of the military, there is no doubt about it. But for this situation, Luo Sha already knew it well. After all, no matter whether he shot or not, since the moment the wanted Bruce Banner appeared in his shop, such an ending could not be avoided. And frankly, now that Luo Sha's strength has grown to a sufficient level, she no longer takes this kind of thing seriously. What's the situation? On the street outside, General Ross's eyes widened suddenly, as if he saw something incredible. Hulk was knocked out by a strong force. How is this possible? General Ross has captured Hulk for so long, fought against Hulk many times, and conducted a detailed study of Hulk. Even the birth of Hulk is related to him. It is no exaggeration to say that General Ross is the person who knows Hulk best in the world. No one knows how terrible Chu Hack is than General Ross. What a powerful force is contained in that green body. But now, Hulk was actually beaten into the air. Who is it? General Ross subconsciously turned his gaze to the direction where Hulk was shot. On the plaque, several large characters came into General Ross's eyes. Devil Fruit House. It turned out to be this place. Really, Bruce Banner is here for a reason. Bruce Banner, who was in the stage of being wanted by himself and had been hiding abroad for a long time, now sneaked back to New York and came to such an inconspicuous store. General Ross had actually noticed this house of devil fruit a long time ago. He also made up his mind a long time ago to find out the details of this store after the event. It must not be an unusual place for Bruce Banner to take risks under such circumstances. Looking at it now, it really is. What happened? Not only General Ross, but Abomination was also stunned, stimulated by the scene in front of him. Who was the master who sent Hulk flying? Roar. There was a loud roar, but Hulk, who was knocked into the air by Luo Sha, got up from the ground, looked in the direction of the devil fruit shop, and roared to the sky. Boom boom boom. Then he rushed towards the devil fruit store again. The Abomination wanted to go after Hulk, but General Ross suddenly stopped the Abomination. Bronski. Stop it. General Ross would like to see who in the devil fruit shop was the one who repelled the Hulk. This old thing. Seeing that General Ross had done such a trick to him, Luo Sha couldn't help cursing inwardly. This old thing actually wants Hulk to deal with him. Will Luo Sha let this old thing get his way? At this moment, with a thought in his mind, the whole body turned into a beam of light, which suddenly shot out to the top of General Ross and the others outside. Suddenly, a flash flashed outward. Everyone's eyes, including General Ross's, were flashed by the extremely blazing light, resulting in short-term blindness and dizziness. Taking advantage of this moment, Luo Sha quickly landed next to General Ross, and shot at Hulk as soon as the bullet fired. After the fight, it quickly turned into a photon and fled away. Laugh. Roar. Hulk, who was sprinting towards the devil fruit store, was suddenly sneak attacked, and turned angrily in the direction of the attack. After General Ross waited for others, he just came into Hulk's sight. Hulk immediately rushed towards General Ross and the others angrily. Ah, 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 there was a burst of screams, and an unknown number of soldiers were shot to death by Hulk. What happened? That ray of light just now. When General Ross struggled to open his eyes, he saw Hulk had already appeared in front of his eyes. Shit. General Ross tightened his ass, and let out a low curse. Boom. The next moment, Hulk's fists hit General Ross like two big rocks. Suddenly, a ball of plasma exploded, and General Ross was smashed into a puddle of flesh by Hulk. General Ross. General. Dead. General. Suddenly there was a sound of wailing all around. The confidants around General Ross couldn't accept that General Ross was smashed into a pulp, and they all yelled loudly. Boom boom boom. However, the reality did not give them time to grieve, because Hulk chased after them again. Boom boom boom. He ruthlessly waved his fists of anger at them. As General Ross beaten to death just like that, Luo Sha, who returned to the Devil Fruit Shop, couldn't help touching her nose. I felt a burst of consternation. That old man was supposed to live a long life, and even rose all the way up to be the Secretary of State, but who told him to plot his death on Luo Sha's head? It's a dead end. In fact, Luo Sha didn't intend to kill General Ross just because of this, but just retaliated against him in his own way. In the end, I didn't expect Hulk to be so powerful, and he beat General Ross to death. It's a mess. But stunned is stunned, complaining is complaining, Luo Sha actually didn't take this kind of thing too seriously. Considering that Luo Sha had demonstrated the ability of the shiny fruit to some people before, and today it was the stimulation of those golden lights that caused the death of General Ross, then Luo Sha will definitely be involved in the end. But Luo Sha, who now has great strength, doesn't really care. Anyway, he can incarnate into light. So far, in this world, at least the official of the beautiful country, it is impossible for anyone to catch him, and it is impossible for anyone to hurt him. That being the case, what is there to worry about? If it really got stuck in the end, if Luo Sha directly fired 8-foot Chongqiu and destroyed several aircraft carrier formations, he wouldn't believe it, and couldn't deter those official people. Roar. Boom boom boom. On the street, Hulk's roar continued, and the ground was constantly shaking under Hulk's explosive hammer. However, because of Luo Sha's guidance before, Hulk's attention is no longer on Luo Sha at this moment, but chasing after the soldiers brought by General Ross. He vented his anger freely. It is getting farther and farther away from Luo Sha's shop. As for the Abomination, after General Ross was beaten to death by Hulk, where would he continue to work for General Ross and continue to deal with Hulk? At this time, it is natural to go for the best policy. But suddenly, Abomination's body stiffened suddenly, as if hit by a hold spell. Then he shook his body and fell to the ground with a bang. What's the situation? Luo Sha, who was about to go back to her store and was hanging on high as nothing to do with herself, couldn't help showing a look of astonishment when she saw this scene. Why did the hatred suddenly fall? What the hell is going on with this kind of thing? Whoosh. But soon, Luo Sha understood what was going on. Because on the street not far away, a very famous fighter jet landed slowly. It is one of several classic models in Marvel, the Blackbird fighter. There are several generations of Blackbird fighters, but the shape of each generation of fighters is somewhat similar to Blackbird, so it is still very recognizable. Now that the Blackbird fighter jets are here, even if he thinks about it with his thighs, Luo Sha knows what the hatred is. Professor X. It was definitely Professor X in the fighter plane who made the move. As expected, after the Blackbird fighter plane landed, the hatch slowly opened, and Professor X and a gentleman-looking man wearing glasses walked out together. It was Professor X and Beast Hank. Hank, could I trouble you to bring Hulk here? Professor X turned his head to look at Hulk, who was constantly wreaking havoc in the distance, and said to Hank beside him. Professor, do you still dare to say that I am a beast? That is the real beast. Hank glanced at Hulk and couldn't help but be dumbfounded. But the complaints are all complaints. Hank still didn't have any nonsense. He took off his eyes and started walking towards Hulk. The instant he turned around, the hair on Hank's body began to grow rapidly. A blue, furry beast appeared in front of Luo Sha's eyes. Hey, big guy, Hank yelled at Hulk as he ran quickly towards Hulk. But now that Hulk is shaking his fists angrily to smash everything, where will Hank's voice be heard? Fine. Hank shook his head helplessly, then picked up a car and threw it at Hulk. Boom. The car slams into Hulk's body, knocking Hulk over, but not hurting Hulk at all. Hulk, who was venting his anger, temporarily stopped what he was doing, and turned his head away abruptly. A pair of angry eyes hit Hank so directly. Roar. A roar made Hank's ears tingle slightly. Being stared at by Hulk, Hank felt his ass tighten even more, as if a husky met a real wolf. Whoosh. The next moment, Hank's eyes blurred, but it was Hulk who jumped up a distance of tens of meters and smashed towards Hank fiercely. That huge force is terrifying even if you look at it with the naked eye. How dare Hank resist? Immediately using hands and feet like a beast, he ran away quickly, dodging Hulk's deadly hammer. Boom. The ground behind him was suddenly hammered out into a big hole, and cracks spread directly. I must be crazy to provoke such a guy. Hulk caught a glimpse of the other party's terrifying strength from the corner of his eyes, and the chrysanthemum tightened suddenly, not daring to be tough with Hulk, and began to run away crazily. But Hulk's speed was too fast, and now he killed Hank again, chasing after Hank's ass and bombarding Hank indiscriminately. No matter how hard Hank dodged, he couldn't always dodge completely. In the end, he was hit by a punch from Hulk. Boom. Hank's body was like a cannonball, and was directly smashed by Hulk. He crashed into a car all of a sudden, and even knocked over that car. Then Hank rolled on the ground for more than 10 meters, hit a wall on the other side, and then stopped. Ahem. 2 coughs came out of his mouth. Hank only felt that his whole skeleton was about to fall apart. It felt like Hulk's punch almost killed him. Scared. That big green guy is really scary. If he was hit again, Hank felt that he might be beaten to death directly. Hank, are you okay? Professor X's eyelids were also twitching, and he couldn't help staring at Hank and asking. He knew that Hank was not Hulk's opponent, but he didn't expect that the gap between the two sides would be so large. The original intention of Professor X is not to let Hank capture Hulk after defeating it, but to let Hank lead him over, that's all. The task is not difficult. But I didn't expect Hank to be so embarrassed. Professor, I regret listening to you and going to provoke this big guy. Hank struggled to get up from the ground, and complained to Professor X. God is sorry, that big guy is really terrible. Although he is called Beast, he is also a vulnerable younger brother in front of that big guy. Well, Hank, you're fine. Seeing that Hank is fine, Professor X was completely relieved. Although you made yourself very embarrassed, you also brought this big guy here. Boom. There was a loud bang, but because of too much force, he crashed through a wall, hit Hulk in a room, and hammered out another hole in the wall. He jumped out with a bang. Roar. He just looked at Hank and Professor X who were still standing there, and roared angrily. Beast Hank suddenly felt his body go stiff. He quickly got up, walked to Professor X, and stared at Hulk as if he was facing an enemy. Professor, doesn't your ability not work on him? Stop him. No, I'm making another attempt. Professor X had already put his hands on his temples, and activated his ability, spiritual ability and inspiring fruit ability towards Hulk, and immediately felt Hulk's emotions very clearly. It's a shocking outrage. Professor X was shocked. Boom boom boom. The ground started to roar again, but it was Hulk who rushed towards Professor X and Hank like a hill after he finished roaring. Professor. Beast Hank narrowed his pupils slightly, and quickly said to Professor X, no matter what you want to do, but I think you should hurry up. Talking. Beast Hank subconsciously walked up to Professor X, and instinctively kept Professor X behind him. But, I can control this anger. Immediately afterwards, Professor X made such a sonorous and forceful sound, the ability of encouraging fruit was launched, and instantly closed the door of anger in Hulk's body. And at the same time, the door of tranquility and door of gentleness in that body were also opened. Under the ebb and flow, the effect is very obvious. But seeing the big green man who was running towards Professor X and Hank at high speed, his speed slowed down all of a sudden. Then his footsteps began to stagger, and he fell to the ground with a plop. And then, its body began to change rapidly, the green color began to fade, and its size began to shrink. Soon, the original Hulk disappeared, and Bruce Banner reappeared in front of everyone. Looking around blankly, Bruce Banner quickly understood what was going on. There was a look of extreme pain on his face. No, no, no. Such painful cries kept coming out of Bruce Banner's mouth. Just now, did he actually cause such a mess and even kill so many people? That's something Bruce Banner couldn't accept anyway. Mr. Bruce, it's not your fault. Professor X's voice sounded, and he said to Bruce Banner with a straight face. Just now when he used ability to control the emotions of Bruce Banner and Hulk, he also read Bruce Banner's memory, so he knew what happened. Strictly speaking, this matter is really General Ross's own fault. That's right, it's not my fault, it's Hulk's fault. It's all Hulk's fault. Bruce Banner slammed the ground hard, angrily speaking. Then he sorted out the vague memory just now, and an inconceivably shocked look appeared on his face. He raised his head suddenly and looked at Professor X. What did you do? You put Hulk into a deep sleep. Speaking of this, Bruce Banner glanced at Bronski lying on the street again out of the corner of his eye, feeling even more unbelievable. Hate, also got down by this person. How did this man do it? This is simply impossible. Wait a minute, I know you are Professor Xavier, an expert in genetic variation, how did you do it? Bruce Banner's eyes suddenly lit up, and he looked at Professor X excitedly and asked. If this person really has a way to control Hulk, doesn't that mean that Hulk's problem is solved? There is a solution to the problem that has haunted Bruce Banner for years, kept him awake, and changed his destiny. I'm sorry Mr. Bruce, but I can't help you. Professor X was very polite, but at the same time decisively rejected Bruce Banner. Why, you saw what kind of damage the Hulk did, it was a disaster. And you can prevent this catastrophe from happening. Please, Professor Xavier. Bruce Banner spoke to Professor X with an almost pleading voice. I'm sorry Mr. Bruce, but I really can't. Professor X's attitude was still very resolute, and then he didn't give Bruce Banner a chance to speak, and directly activated his ability to the other party. I have never been here, and you have never seen me, and, if you don't want to if you get caught, I think you should leave now. Bruce Banner's expression was in a trance for a while, and then, like an obedient robot, he quickly turned and ran away. Professor X's ability is really perverted. Luo Sha on one side couldn't help but stare dumbfounded. Fortunately, he has a systematic protection, which is immune to Professor X's ability, otherwise he would not dare to come into contact with this kind of character. Manager Luo Sha, are you okay? After everything was settled, Professor X turned his head and greeted Luo Sha unhurriedly. I'm fine. Luo Sha shook his head, and smiled slightly at the other party. Thanks to Mr. Xavier, you came in time, otherwise things will be even worse. Obviously, I'm still not in time enough. Professor X spread his hands. At this moment, Professor X seemed to sense something, so he greeted Luo Sha, Shop Manager Luo Sha, I'm sorry, but I have to go. He has already used his psychic ability to sense that the officials are rushing here quickly. Mr. Xavier, please do yourself a favor. Luo Sha waved at Professor X. Professor X greeted Hank, and the two quickly retreated to the Blackbird and left the place quickly. Luo Sha glanced at the mess outside. Her expression remained the same, as if nothing had happened, and she just returned to her shop calmly. Professor, I don't understand. We have an agreement with the authorities, we only deal with mutant matters, and we don't intervene in ordinary people's affairs. Hulk didn't attack once or twice. We didn't intervene before. Why did we suddenly intervene this time? Inside the Blackbird fighter jet, Hank asked Professor X, a little puzzled while driving the fighter jet. Hank, don't worry, I've wiped the memories of everyone involved, no one knows we've been there. Professor X said to Hank calmly, and picked up a magazine to read. Maybe not everyone, Hank said meaningfully. Obviously. The owner of the Devil Fruit store is an exception. Professor, this time, you're actually not here because of Hulk, but because of the store manager Luo Sha, right? Hank is not stupid, on the contrary, his IQ is still very, very high, and he has vaguely guessed something. You're right, Hank, I didn't just erase the memory of people around us that we had been there, but I made other modifications as well. In this incident, store manager Luo Sha won't receive any official attention and won't be in any trouble. Professor X did not deny this, but directly stated his purpose to Hank. Why, Professor? Hank was puzzled by this. Why would we do that? Just release some kindness, just in case. Professor X said meaningfully. As for the, just in case, Professor X did not reveal it anyway. Hell's Kitchen, Atlantis Hotel. This is the most luxurious hotel in Hell's Kitchen, and the people who usually come in and out of this hotel are some top figures from Hell's Kitchen. Here, it is a symbol of identity and status. Unless it's the few people at the top of the pyramids, or even the many people who are famous in Hell's Kitchen who want to come here, they need to book in advance. It can be seen to what extent the coffee position of this hotel has reached. Especially the location on the top floor is notoriously difficult to book. For those famous people, the orders can be queued for a month or two. But now, the entire top floor of Atlantis was actually occupied by one person. There is no doubt that there is only one person who can have such a skill, Jin Bing. And Jin is not so ostentatious, there is no other possibility except for the beauty in front of him. Vanessa, I'm really sorry. I have a lot of things to deal with these days, and I really can't leave. I'm neglecting you. Jin sat across from Vanessa, and said to Vanessa very sincerely with a touch of apology. Since killing Shin, Jin Bin can be said to have uprooted the entire Yakuza gang behind Shin in one go. Before that, Jin Bing killed the two Big Bear brothers early on. The power of the Big Bear brothers was naturally taken over by Jin Bing. In addition, just a few days ago, Jin Bin also found out that the person who poisoned Vanessa was actually that old fool Leland. What else is there to say? Jin Bing sent Bullseye to go out in person, and killed the old man with just a small stone. So what about the forces under Leland? Undoubtedly, it was also swallowed by Jin Bing. In the past, the 5 major powers of Hell's Kitchen, which were 5 points in the world, were killed by Jin Bing in such a blink of an eye, and only Madame Gao remained. So Jin didn't really lie, he was indeed very busy during this time, and he didn't have the time and tenderness of a beautiful woman. As for Madame Gao, Jin didn't pay much attention to it. Just a fan from Hong Kong Island. If the other few people were still there, Mrs. Gao could unite with others to check and balance Jin Bing, but now, the other party is alone, and Jin does not think that the other party can pose a threat to him. If it wasn't for eating too much during this time and needing to digest it properly, Jin Bing would have gone over and killed Mrs. Gao long ago. Have to say, with the blessing of Devil Fruit ability, Jin Bing is indeed a little bit drifting. And the Devil Fruit's ability has indeed played a big role in Jin Bing's series of actions. Don't get me wrong, Jin Bing didn't actually go out in person, that's not in line with Jin Bing's style. It was only an exception when it came to dealing with the letter, it was Kim who wanted to avenge Wesley, that's all. Most of the time, Jin Bing still acts as a behind-the-scenes driving force. All his affairs are left to Bullseye. The reason why Bullseye has become such an important reason is that it comes from the fast-cut fruit purchased by Jin Bing. That's right, Jin gave Bullseye the quick-cut fruit and took it. And I have to say that the quick-cut fruit is indeed a fruit that is very suitable for Bullseye. The original Bullseye, although his one-handed throwing skills are amazing, he is still an archer after all. Once someone gets close to the body, the combat power will be marked in half. But the fruit of Quick Slash completely made up for this weakness of Bullseye. This makes Bullseye a super warrior who has no blind spots in all aspects of long-range attack and melee combat, and has the ability to transform his body into a blade to obtain super defense power. No one can stop it at all. The backbone of several other forces, almost all of them were killed by Bullseye alone, and the old 5-divided world structure was broken in one fell swoop. Jin Bing can be said to be in a good mood during this time. The only regret is that the woman named Erica was never found. Shaking his head and throwing away those distracting thoughts in his mind, Jin turned his attention to the beautiful woman in front of him again. Tonight, he put all those annoying things behind him, just to make up for Vanessa. Faith, you know, you don't have to. Vanessa stretched out her hand, took Jin Bin's hand, and said to Jin Bin in a reasonable manner, I'm not those women outside, I just know that I need people to accompany me all day, I understand what you are doing, and I do too. I don't want to distract you and become your burden. Vanessa, this is why I like you, and you are not my burden, you are everything in my life. Jin also squeezed Vanessa's hand tightly, and said to the other party heavily. Pissed, Vanessa on the opposite side couldn't help laughing, is it a little too sensational? Well, Jin Bin just smiled, and turned to other things, how is your fruit development going? Speaking of which, don't you notice that my skin is better than it used to be? Vanessa shook her head proudly in front of Jin Bin. In my eyes, you have always been so perfect. Although Jin Bing's earthy love talk is not very high level, Vanessa on the opposite side likes it very much. His eyes narrowed into a slit when he laughed. He was about to say something to Jin Bing, but at this moment, all the lights in the private room were turned off at once. The originally bright private room suddenly became dark. Jin Bin immediately showed a look of vigilance on his face. Ah, chug chug. At the same time, bursts of gunshots and faint screams also rang out, which made Jin Bing's face even more ugly. A group of ninjas came in. Bullseye, who was guarding outside before, quickly came to Jin Bin and reported to Jin Bin, "I'll stop them first, you leave quickly." Ninja. Jin didn't feel very surprised. He has uprooted the influence of Shin, so why are there still ninjas? But now, it is not the time to delve into these matters. Vanessa, hurry up. Jin stood up immediately, protected Vanessa, and quickly evacuated under the escort of several other close confidants. Clang, clang. But at this time, the surrounding windows were smashed. A group of ninjas swung in just like that, completely blocking Jin Bin's way. Iron Fist, we meet again. One of them, wearing a suit and holding a long sword with a red hilt in his hand, looked at Jin leisurely and opened his mouth. Letter. Jin Bing thought he was wrong. Wasn't this guy hammered to death by himself? Why did it appear alive and kicking again? Jin Bing remembered it clearly. At that time, he had smashed Shin's heart into a pile of mud with one punch, and there was no possibility of him surviving. This guy, not only Jin Bin, but even Bullseye's face showed disbelief. We have already killed you. Bullseye fixed his eyes on the letter, and his voice was also full of indescribable surprise. He couldn't understand such a thing at all. Die. Shin heard the words, but smiled disdainfully, there is no such thing at all. Clang. At this point, Shin pulled out the long sword in his hand, and waved at Jin with his hands, give it to me. The ninjas behind Shin immediately began to swarm up, quickly clenched their long swords, and rushed towards Jin Bin. Chug chug, chug chug. Naturally, some of Jin Bing's confidants were not vegetarians, and they took up weapons one after another to fight back. The two sides started a fierce exchange of fire in this ultra-luxurious space. Jin Bin, let's go, leave this place to us. Bullseye didn't say much nonsense, and immediately picked up some knives, forks and other things from a table in front of him with both hands, and quickly threw them towards the ninjas. Those ninjas swung their swords quickly to resist. Jingle. There was a dense sound of gold and iron colliding, just like that. Vanessa, this way. Jin didn't dare to delay any longer, so he quickly walked towards the passage while protecting Vanessa. Clang. But at this time, there was another sound of glass breaking. Another person wearing a windbreaker and also holding a long sword rushed in all of a sudden. At the same time, he dived forward on the ground, stood up quickly, and stood in front of Jin Bing. This person is none other than Murakami, one of the 5 fingers of the Hand Association, who is also Shin's master. Murakami just stood there holding his sword, looking at Jin Bin with a sneer on his face. Tekken, where are you going? Jin Bing's complexion began to become extremely ugly. This time the enemy came prepared, struck gold and was caught off guard. It's all up to now, and the people he arranged on the periphery have not seen anyone come to support for a long time. It is obvious that they have either been wiped out or dragged back. And in this hall, his extremely limited manpower has long been defeated and defeated by the people who believed in him. The current him is the only one who can't support him. You guys are going to deal with me, let Vanessa go. Jin knew that it was unrealistic to take Vanessa away, so he fixed his eyes on the oriental face that blocked him, and said in a deep voice. Excuse me, do we look like people who let women go? When Murakami heard this, he couldn't help but sneered. In the eyes of their hand, there is no distinction between men and women, and everyone is an ant in their eyes, without any distinction. For centuries, in order to find the keel, the hand have set off earthquakes and caused plagues in many cities, and the entire city has been destroyed by them. Such a person would have any sympathy. Show your fists, Iron Fist. If you want the women around you to live, it's very simple, kill us, kill everyone here. Murakami waved the long sword in his hand, and smiled bitterly at Jin Bin. Vanessa, get behind me. Knowing that he had no choice now, Jin took off his coat, put it on Vanessa, and said to Vanessa. Vanessa is a relatively calm woman. In this situation, she did not show any panic. Instead, she calmly comforted Jin Bin. Faith K, this is your city, no one can beat you. Yes Vanessa, no one can beat me. Jin Bing nodded heavily to the other party. Only then did Vanessa quickly back away, curled up in a corner behind Jin Bing, and stood against the wall. At this moment, Jin Bing slowly raised his fist, and instantly heated up his fist. Murakami, who was opposite Jin Bin, also began to look serious. The iron fist of this term can actually summon the chi in his body so quickly and light up his fist. It seems that he has indeed learned a lot. Only, how long can iron fist's chi last? A cold light flashed in Murakami's eyes. Without saying any nonsense, he held his sword and killed Jin Bing. Jin Bin also waved his pair of iron fists and charged towards Murakami. The two sides also fought inextricably together. As the 5 fingers of the hand, Murakami is still an old monster who has lived for hundreds of years, so it goes without saying that he has all kinds of abilities. Jin Bing was originally a first-class fighting master, very powerful, and with the iron fist body protection, it was even more powerful. Therefore, even though the battles between the two sides have advanced and retreated from each other, it is difficult to say who is stronger. During the fierce battle, Murakami leapt to the side of Jin Bin's body with a dexterous tumbling, the long sword in his hand aimed at Jin Bin's empty door, and stabbed through with one sword. It stabbed directly at Jin Bing's body. Successful. A look of joy flashed across Murakami's face. But at the next moment, there was a sound of metal collision, and the smile on Murakami's face froze immediately. His long sword was actually blocked by Jin Bing's body, as if it had been stabbed into steel, and he couldn't penetrate it at all. What happened? Murakami was startled, but Jin didn't give Murakami a chance to be surprised. His hot fist grasped Murakami's long sword, and then Murakami saw that his long sword melted directly in Jin Bin's fist. What the hell? When did Tekken have this function? At this time, Murakami also suddenly realized that during the battle between him and Jin Bin, from the beginning to the end, he could feel the fiery temperature from Jin Bin's fist. Something is wrong. Suspicion arose in Murakami's heart. This iron fist was so weird. They are the traitors of Kunlun, so they naturally understand Kunlun's iron fist. Iron fist lights up the fist by summoning chi. When did it make the fist so hot? Whoosh. At the moment when Murakami's thoughts flashed, Jin Bin casually threw out the fused half of the long sword in his hand, and just punched Murakami with a punch. Murakami was caught off guard by Jin Bin's series of actions and couldn't dodge, so he could only wave the half-length sword in his hand and slash across his chest. When a muffled sound came, it was Jin Bing who punched Murakami's half of the long sword, and then pressed the half of the sword, hitting Murakami's body at the same time. Murakami's body suddenly felt like a cannonball, and was sent flying by Jin Bing. Ahem. After struggling to get up, Murakami looked at the half of the long sword that had been smashed into a discus, and was still red, and couldn't help being speechless. Even a weapon made of fine steel can be smashed like this. If it wasn't for this thing to block him, even if he didn't die with that punch just now, it would still be enough for him to drink a pot. Vanessa, hurry up. Murakami was knocked over with a punch, and Jin Bin immediately greeted Vanessa, and quickly evacuated towards the passage. On one side, Murakami stood up leisurely and slapped some dust off his body, not in a hurry. This hotel has been controlled by the hand, so where can Jin Bin escape to? Really, when Jin Bing just came to the front of the passage, his body suddenly froze. Because a large number of ninjas rushed out of the passage, Tuantuan blocked Jin Bing's way. Surrounded by those ninjas, a trembling old lady walked out with a cane. Madame Gao, don't mention how surprised Jin was. This fan dealer from Hong Kong Island is actually in the same group as Shin. The situation was already so obvious, how could Jin not understand this? And right now, since Mrs. Gao has brought people to join Tongshin and those people, it means that Jin Bing's power has been cleared away by Mrs. Gao. The situation has become extremely serious. Jin Bing's complexion began to become more and more ugly. The crisis he is facing today will be the biggest crisis he has had in Hell's Kitchen for so many years. If one fails, both he and Vanessa may die here. Mrs. Gao, I have to say, this really surprised me. Jin Bings stepped back slowly in front of Vanessa, looked at Mrs. Gao solemnly and said, "No, it was you who really surprised me," Mrs. Gao said to Jin Bing meaningfully. If it hadn't been for Jin Bin to expose himself, she would never have imagined that Jin Bin would be the new Iron Fist. You guys are really well prepared today. Jin Bin glanced at the ninjas surrounding the scene, and said with a low face, "I never fight unprepared battles." Madame Gao nodded deeply. The Hand had been looking for Iron Fist for so long, and now that they finally found it, how could they not make a good plan? Iron Fist is not so easy to deal with after all. Then it seems that I have no choice. After Jin Bing finished speaking, he suddenly got into trouble and rushed towards Mrs. Gao. He planned to capture the thief first and capture the king first, and took Mrs. Gao as a hostage. Although he didn't quite understand the relationship between Mrs. Gao and this group of ninjas, Jin could tell that Mrs. Gao's status among those ninjas was not low. That may be Jin Bin's only chance to escape. It's just a pity. Jin did not underestimate Mrs. Gao far. If Mrs. Gao didn't have two brushes, how could she dare to stand in front of Jin Bin and pretend to be arrogant? Drink. At the moment Jin Bin rushed towards Madame Gao suddenly slapped Jin Bin with a palm. A huge wave of air burst out immediately. Boom. Jin didn't even have time to get close to Mrs. Gao. He was as huge as a small mountain, and was directly sent flying by Mrs. Gao. It hit the ground hard, as if the whole building was shaken violently. What's the situation? Jin Bing was completely bewildered, and he couldn't even react. He just was hit by Mrs. Gao's palm. What the hell was he flying with a palm in the air? How could such a thing be possible? It's so magical. Could it be? A thought quickly flashed in Jin Bin's mind. Could it be that Madame Gao also ate the devil fruit? That's right. That must be it. Only in this way can it explain why people can send out chi waves. Faith Graham. An exclamation sounded, but it was Vanessa who rushed over in a hurry and helped Jin Bin up with a worried face. I'm fine. Kim waved at Vanessa. The scene just now seemed thrilling, but in fact, when Jin Bin felt the danger, he subconsciously steeled his body immediately. In fact, there was no substantial damage. But even so, facing such a large number of ninjas, as well as Mrs. Gao, the ability, and Shin, the other Oriental man, the situation on the scene is also very pessimistic. Subconsciously looked up. Jin Bin found that all his current subordinates were dead, except for Bullseye, who was struggling to support himself. Although Bullseye's combat effectiveness is relatively strong, after all, close combat is not what Bullseye is good at, not to mention that the Hand is not built, and there are too many people. Bullseye couldn't spare Jin Bing for a while. Stop making useless resistance. Iron Fist, you have nowhere to go. Madame Gao's piercing voice sounded, and she just leaned on her crutches and said condescendingly to Jin Bin. Do you think you guys won? It's not the time yet. Jin Bing let out a sneer, waved his fists again, and rushed towards Mrs. Gao. Whoosh! A figure flashed past, but it was Murakami who rushed over again, swung his sword and stabbed at Jin. Although Mrs. Gao's qigong is strong, she is too old to be able to fight against others as flexibly as Murakami. Mrs. Gao only needs to amplify her moves silently in the dark. This is the correct way to open Mrs. Gao's ability. Really. Drink. Taking advantage of Murakami's entanglement with Jin, Mrs. Gao sent out a second wave of anger and knocked Jin away again. Jin Bing only felt that his internal organs were churning, which was very uncomfortable. Even though he had steeled his body, Mrs. Gao's power still permeated in. A moment. Jin Bin's fear of Mrs. Gao has reached a peak. Attacking Jin with swords is no longer a concern, but Mrs. Gao's airwave can actually cause substantial damage to Jin. Jin Bing's face became more and more ugly. On the other hand, Vanessa's complexion also became extremely ugly. Murakami and Mrs. Gao joined forces to completely suppress Jin Bin. Shin led a group of people, but also dragged Bullseye, and the situation was still very pessimistic. It can't go on like this. Vanessa gritted her teeth, with a look of determination on her face, and made a decision. Because if this continues, Jin Bing's end will come. Although she also ate the devil fruit, Vanessa did not have any combat skills. She was always afraid that she would be caught by the enemy and become Jin Bin's constraint, but now, Vanessa had no choice. She began to activate her ability silently, to absorb the moisture in all the surrounding objects that could absorb it. Fruit spilled on the floor, desserts, water in fish tanks, etc. The water in its body is constantly increasing. And on this kind of battlefield, everyone's eyes were on Jin Bin and Bullseye, and no one noticed Vanessa, a weak woman, at all. Until she absorbed all the water in the fish tank into her body. Jingle. The sound of gold and iron colliding was heard constantly one after another, but I saw a long sword in Murakami's hand swinging imperceptibly, and he and Jin Bing were still fighting inextricably. With Mrs. Gao as a powerful helper to assist, the two can be said to have firmly suppressed Jin. However, Jin Bin's body can be made of steel, and his defense should not be too abnormal, so the two can only suppress Jin Bin temporarily. It will be a while, and it is a bit unrealistic to really kill Jin Bing. Iron Fist, just grab it. During the fierce battle, Mrs. Gao, who was on crutches, raised her hand again, aiming at Jin Bin. He planned to use his energy wave to attack Jin Bin again. Unfortunately, however, this time Mrs. Gao just raised her hand, and before she had time to attack Jin Bin, Vanessa suddenly rushed out behind Jin Bin. Suddenly, he slapped Mrs. Gao across the air with a palm. Laugh. Mrs. Gao didn't even realize what was going on. An extremely violent water line just shot out from Vanessa's hand. All of a sudden it sprayed on Mrs. Gao's body. The power of the water line was extremely powerful. Like a heavy hammer hitting it, it shot Mrs. Gao upside down in an instant. Shattered the walls. What's the situation? Murakami, who fought against Jin Bin, was completely stunned, unable to react at all to what was going on. Why did that woman spray water all of a sudden? Is there a mistake? What kind of weird move is this? But at this critical moment when Murakami was distracted, Jin Bin seized this critical moment. With a sudden step, he rushed to the front of Murakami, and punched Murakami fiercely. Murakami was caught off guard by Jin Bing, unable to dodge in time, he could only quickly resist with the long sword in his hand. However, Jin Bin didn't care about it and let Murakami's long sword strike him, and his hot and red fist hit Murakami's heart heavily. If Mrs. Gao was there, this situation would never have happened. She would use the airwave to open the gold immediately. But unfortunately, Mrs. Gao is not here now. Boom. With a loud bang, Murakami was also knocked over by Jin Bing. Like the original letter, his ribs were broken, his heart burst, and his flesh and blood were melted by Jin Bing's high-heat fists, and he was beaten into a pool of mud. Died instantly. Fighting against a master like Jin Bin, one distraction, that is a fatal injury. Murakami. Mrs. Gao got up from the ground, glanced at Murakami who was killed, and her face suddenly became extremely ugly. He looked into Vanessa's eyes, full of shock and puzzlement. She never expected that the situation on the battlefield would change like this because of this woman whom she had never paid attention to. Drink. Madame Gao's eyes became sharper, and she raised her head to give Vanessa a slap. But the gold on one side is not a vegetarian. How could he watch this happen? There was a sharp shout in his mouth, and he rushed towards Mrs. Gao immediately. Mrs. Gao had no choice but to abandon Vanessa and dodge temporarily. During this process, Vanessa still wanted to continue to use the water gun to shoot, but Jin was also beside Mrs. Gao, which made her a little bit cautious. After all, her water gun attack is a huge amount of weakening for Jin. Take him down. Madame Gao successfully retreated to the side, beckoned to the ninjas waiting behind her, and gave orders ruthlessly. A group of ninjas immediately started rushing towards Jin Bing. Vanessa also took a step forward at this time, and shouted at Kim, Faith K, get out of the way. Jin didn't understand, and quickly dodged aside. Vanessa waved her hands violently, facing the ninjas who were rushing, and began to spray water without any scruples. A group of muffled hums suddenly sounded. The ninjas who rushed up were immediately shot back. Vanessa can be said to be in high spirits. Her ability can help get Jinpin. Jin is also in high spirits, and Vanessa can be said to have helped a lot. The troublesome guy in Murakami was killed, and Mrs. Gao could be restrained by Vanessa, so the remaining ninjas would not pose much threat to Jin Bin. Vanessa, be careful, follow me closely. Jin Bin explained to Vanessa, and then he started to punch the ninjas rushing towards him with his hot fists. These ninjas are far worse than Murakami, and Jinpin can steal his body, completely ignoring the opponent's attack, just use his fist to crush. The scene can be imagined. Basically, one punch, two kicks, the opponent is like a rookie in front of Jin Bing. If it weren't for paying attention to protecting Vanessa behind her, Jin Bing would have fought more easily. Laugh, laugh, laugh. Vanessa, who was not far from Jin Bin, also used her waterline to help Jin Bin defend against the enemy from time to time, and the most important thing was to prevent that old Mrs. Gao from working in secret. Definitely, the water in Vanessa's body is also consumed very quickly, but fortunately, there are corpses everywhere on the ground, and now Vanessa is not afraid of attracting the attention of others, so she blatantly absorbs the water in those corpses. It is completely enough to be used against the enemy. That's all. With the combination of the husband and wife's swords, the number of enemies is constantly decreasing. The pressure on the bullseye side was greatly reduced, and the enemy began to fight back. The situation on the scene was reversed just like that. Let's go. Mrs. Gao finally gave this order to everyone present. That's how we lose. Believe that is called a reconciliation. This is impossible, Mrs. Gao said in a deep voice to the letter. Although they did still have some manpower, Jin Bin and Bullseye didn't know what was going on, and their bodies were invulnerable to swords. Coupled with a guy who can spray water to attack others and beat her to death, there is no suspense in this battle. If the fight continues, it will not have any effect except to bury some hands of the hand in vain. Where does Shin not understand this truth? He gritted his teeth, picked up Murakami's body on the ground, and retreated with Mrs. Gao. And when the two successfully completed the evacuation, the other ninjas also retreated quickly. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared completely. Only the criss-crossed corpses at the scene were left. Vanessa, are you okay? Kim hurriedly asked about Vanessa's situation. I'm fine. Vanessa shook her head. Jin Bing checked it carefully and it was indeed the case, so he couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Then, his face began to show a murderous look, and these two names popped out from between his teeth: Shin, Mrs. Gao. Madame Gao's secret stronghold. Mrs. Gao, the dead Murakami, and Shin stood face to face. The complexions of the three of them all looked very ugly. The atmosphere at the scene can be said to be extremely dull. Their two fingers of the hand association came forward in person, and Murakami's apprentice Shin was also there, plus more than 50 ninjas. Such a luxury lineup, unexpectedly such a crushing defeat. Not only did they fail to catch the Iron Fist, but they also took nearly half of the people, and even Murakami was killed. This is a great shame to Murakami and Mrs. Gao. Definitely, this is not the most important thing. The most important thing is that they seem to be wasting their time this time. We may be mistaken, Jin is not Iron Fist. Mrs. Gao's voice sounded, her brows were frowned like chrysanthemums blooming in late autumn, and she said to the other two. That's right, Jin is not an Iron Fist. Murakami nodded, agreeing in a very positive tone. They used to be from Kunlun, and they knew a lot about Iron Fist. As soon as they played against Jin this time, they could immediately confirm this. Although Jin Bin's fist can shine like an iron fist, Jin Bin is not an iron fist. But it doesn't matter anymore, we and Jin are now in a situation of life and death. Mrs. Gao said in a deep voice. Jin Bing had besieged Shin once, and now they have also carried out a large-scale siege of Jin Bing, and they have taken in so many people, it is impossible to be good. Even if Mrs. Gao didn't care about those sacrificed hands, Jin Bing couldn't let it go. Sorry, it was my mistake. I provided wrong information. Shin bowed his head deeply on the side, and confessed his mistake to Murakami and Mrs. Gao. It's not your fault, Mrs. Gao said. Who would have thought that a person who is not an iron fist can also light up his own fist? But since he's not an iron fist, what's the matter with his fist? Immediately after, Murakami opened his mouth with a puzzled expression on his face, expressing the doubts in his heart. And this is also something that Mrs. Gao and Shin are puzzled by. In addition to Jin Bin, that woman is also very weird. She can actually spray water from her body to attack others. There is also the man who can turn his hands and feet into blades. The letter followed Murakami's words to supplement. The scene fell silent for a while, and several core members of the hand were speechless. Even they felt that all this was a bit bizarre. Devil Fruit Store. Shop manager, this guy Wesley is not dead, is he? Since he joined the group, he hasn't even said a word. I also paid special attention to it. He has never even been online. I sent him a message, and he never replied, and he was always offline. I can only think that Wesley is dead. Luo Sha was chatting with Deadpool idly, and Deadpool started complaining to him about the arrival of Wesley, the million years diving king. Luo Sha was speechless. Deadpool's mouth is really old as always. Even if Wesley is really offline for a long time, you can't curse him to death, can you? Luo Sha knew Wesley's identity. He was helping Jin and was in charge of a huge underground kingdom. How could there be time for the water group? It's normal not to be online, okay. Luo Sha didn't take Deadpool's words to heart at all. However, Luo Sha was very interested in the question Deadpool raised. As we all know, in the world of pirates, if the devil fruit ability user dies, the corresponding devil fruit will return to nature and reappear in a certain place. But what if it's in the Marvel world? If it still reappears, doesn't that mean that the devil fruit sold by Luo Sha can be recycled indefinitely? He felt that this was a small loophole, and the system should not allow it. Otherwise, if someone finds out about this secret, they can just start hunting down those with abilities, and don't even use it to buy devil fruits in the store. But anyway, this is also Luo Sha's guess. So he entered the system and asked, "System, if the devil fruit ability user dies, what will happen to the devil fruit he ate?" It will disappear permanently with the death of the ability user, and will not return in any form. Close black lens bracket. The system immediately gave such an answer, which was the same as Luo Sha's guess. Luo Sha felt relieved. Then, will the corresponding fruit of the dead ability be relisted in the system mall? Close black lens bracket. Luo Sha asked again. When the store shelves are updated, they will be put on the shelves again. Close black lens bracket. The system answers again. When will the store shelves be updated? When a certain sales target is reached, it will be updated. Close black lens bracket. So, when exactly? Next shelf update indicator. 15 devil fruits have been sold in total. Close black lens bracket. 15. Luo Sha secretly calculated in his heart, and now he has sold a total of 10 devil fruits, which means that as long as he sells 5 more devil fruits, the system shelf will be updated. Luo Sha is still full of expectations for this. After all, the devil fruits currently on the shelves in the system mall are relatively low-end fruits. So after the shelves are updated, will some relatively high-end fruits be added? For example, the door fruit that Bruce Banner is more concerned about. Or, Nicole Robin's Wawa fruit, Moonlight Moria's shadow fruit. Wait for those more interesting Superman fruits. Or even, some natural fruits. In short, Luo Sha believes that it will be very exciting then. The store manager. Why don't you talk? The store manager. By the way, I saw it on the news. That big green guy appeared on your street. Are you okay, store manager? Look at my brain. How could you have something to do, store manager, otherwise how would you have the time to chat with me? There was a message receiving notification sound on the social platform again, and Deadpool sent another large piece of information. But instead of talking nonsense, he asked about Luo Sha. I'm fine, Luo Sha replied casually, but she was actually very surprised in her heart. Originally, he was prepared to be approached by the military or SHIELD, but who would have thought that after a whole week, no one came to bother him at all. Even when the military sealed off the scene and conducted interviews and investigations on the residents of this street, Luo Sha was specifically omitted. It seems that Luo Sha is a transparent person. Could it be Professor X? After thinking about it for a while, Luo Sha only came up with the only logical possibility. After all, Professor X appeared at that time. After solving Hulk's crisis, Professor X conveniently did him a small favor and secretly helped him solve some small troubles, which seemed reasonable. Otherwise, this matter really cannot be explained. Thinking of this, Luo Sha felt relieved. If Professor X really made a move in secret, then this wave of troubles will be completely wiped out. As he was secretly thinking about something, the wind chime at the door rang again. Luo Sha raised her head to look, only to see a woman with neat short hair, who looked a bit heroic, walked into the store cleanly, stepping on high heels. This is. Luo Sha immediately felt that this short-haired woman looked very familiar. Within a second, the woman's identity was recognized, Hop Van Dyne. Daughter of the first Ant-Man Hank Pym and future Wasp. Hello, guest, welcome to the store. Luo Sha greeted Hop Van Dyne with a smile. Hi store manager. Hope Van Dyne also responded with a very polite smile, and then began to ask Luo Sha, the store manager, can I ask, is this a fruit shop? Devil Fruit House. I don't want to be rude, but the name is really weird. In fact, it was because of the strange feeling that it attracted the attention of Hop Van Dyne, and Hop Van Dyne, who hadn't planned to buy fruit, walked into the store. Ma'am, you misunderstood. The small shop is not a fruit shop. Luo Sha shook her head at Hope Van Dyne, and smiled at him. The small shop does not sell fruits, but devil fruits. Devil fruit. Hope Van Dyne frowned. What kind of fruit is this? Originally, she thought that Devil Fruit House was just a weird name, but who would have thought that such a thing as devil fruit would actually be sold in the store? A very miraculous fruit. I believe the lady has never seen it before. Luo Sha said to Hope Van Dyne confidently. Hop Van Dyne's appetite was really whetted by Luo Sha. She said curiously, really, I really want to see it. Is that all? Hop Van Dyne's gaze was immediately attracted by the devil fruit in the showcase. Looking at the strange fruits in the showcase, she showed surprise. The store manager is right, these fruits are colorful, and she has never seen them before. Yes, customers, these are the devil fruits sold in small shops. Luo Sha nodded. Wow, I really haven't seen it before. What kind of variety is this? I don't know how it tastes. Hop Van Dyne looked at those devil fruits with great interest and asked. So far, Hope Van Dyne has expressed great interest in devil fruit. The taste can be said to be very unique. Luo Sha thought about it, and could only use the word unique to describe it. It's not time to eat the fruit yet, so I can't just tell people that the fruit is as unpalatable as Shang Shang. Then store manager, give me one. Hop Van Dyne made this decision without much hesitation. She really wanted to taste what this strange-looking fruit was like. Guests, don't be in a hurry, you might as well wait until I have introduced these devil fruits to you before making a decision. Luo Sha interrupted Hop Van Dyne with a smile. The store manager, your service is really Zhou Dao. Hop Van Dyne sighed sincerely. Under normal circumstances, the store would brag about its own products in order to get customers to buy them, but Hop Van Dyne had already decided to buy it, so why bother the store? However, it's not necessary. I prefer to experience it slowly when I go back. Hop Van Dyne waved his hand at Luo Sha. If only that was the case. Luo Sha sighed in her heart. According to previous experience, no matter how good the previous negotiations were, it would be useless. He would definitely scare Hop Van Dyne when he made an offer. At that time, you still have to go back around. But since Hope Van Dyne has already said that he wants to buy it, Luo Sha will naturally not stop him. He directly took out the illustrated book and handed it to Hop Van Dyne. Guest, then, please choose one. Illustrated book. Is this too exaggerated? Hop Van Dyne glanced at the illustrated book, and the previous words stopped abruptly, and his voice rose an octave. Shop manager, are you sure you haven't mislabeled the price? This cost several million at every turn, are you sure there is no mistake? I don't know, I thought it was an antique shop. Guest, just look at the introduction of the fruit in the illustration book. Luo Sha pointed to the introduction about devil fruit in the illustrated book. Eating it can make people get super abilities. Hop Van Dyne glanced at it, and then couldn't help but burst out laughing. I'm sorry store manager, this is a prank session in your store. Then what? It's too nonsense for people to get super ability fruits or something. Luo Sha smiled lightly, and with a thought, his eyes turned into elements. The normal pupils disappeared and were replaced by dazzling golden light. Hop Van Dyne was taken aback immediately. Jesus Christ. Does the guest think this is also a tricky part? Immediately after Luo Sha thought again, her eyes returned to normal, and she looked at Hop Van Dyne with a smile and asked. Hope Van Dyne was speechless. She didn't think that someone would do this for a tricky part. That kind of person might have a brain problem. No matter what method the other party used to make his eyes shine, Hop Van Dyne couldn't understand the scientific principle of it for the time being, but it was obviously impossible to do it easily. Moreover, Hop Van Dyne also took a closer look at Luo Sha's eyes, and found that the other party was not wearing any contact lenses or anything like that. Could it be The opponent's pair of eyeballs are fake eyes. But who would make a pair of fake eyes that glow? In short, this thing is not right anywhere. What happened just now? Hop Van Dyne thought for a while, but couldn't figure it out, so he stared at Luo Sha and asked. As I said before, that's the power of the devil fruit. I'm the shining man who ate the shining fruit, Luo Sha said to Hope Van Dyne. Flash man, Hope Van Dyne laughed, and she also didn't believe this statement, so, you can also shine in other places. Definitely. With a thought in Luo Sha's mind, his whole body began to become elemental. The dazzling light blinded Hope Van Dyne's dog eyes. Hope Van Dyne was completely speechless. If Luo Sha's eyes were shining before, Hope Van Dyne could guess whether the other party was wearing artificial eyes that could glow. But the whole body is shining, this kind of thing can't be explained anyway. It can't be, the one standing in front of me is actually a robot, right? Not to mention that modern technology is simply not up to the level of being able to create such a fake robot. Even if it can be achieved, it is impossible for someone to create such a robot to be a salesperson, right? This is ridiculous. So the manager, is the devil fruit you said true? After Hope Van Dyne pondered for a long time, he could only come to such an incredible conclusion. If the devil fruit is fake, why does the other party spend so much effort to lie to themselves? Isn't that crazy? Guest, whether it is true or not, why don't you try it yourself? Luo Sha saw that the time was almost up, so she began to smile at Hope Van Dyne. The devil fruit in the small store has samples that you can try, and you can get 5 minutes of ability after eating it. You can try it yourself. Although he still didn't believe in the existence of such a thing as a devil fruit, the scene of Luo Sha's whole body shining just now still made Hope Van Dyne unable to let go of it and couldn't understand it. After pondering in her heart for a few seconds, she made a decision. Shop manager, can I have a look at the illustrated book first? Hope Van Dyne said to Luo Sha seriously. Definitely, guests are welcome. Luo Sha nodded to Hope Van Dyne and smiled. Hope Van Dyne began to carefully examine the illustrations. Even though she had persuaded herself to believe the store manager's words for the time being, the fruits in the picture book still made her feel a little ridiculous. A fruit that can turn into an animal, a fruit that can make the surrounding sounds disappear and become silent, a fruit that can turn one's body into a jelly bean. It is simply a fantasy. Wait a moment. While complaining like that in his heart, Hope Van Dyne's eyes finally fell on a certain place on the illustration book, Shishui fruit. This is a fruit that can turn the surrounding objects into a liquid like water. If this fruit is real, wouldn't it be easy to get the wasp battle suit? Wouldn't her father Hank Pym's long-cherished wish for many years be fulfilled? Hope Van Dyne's eyes suddenly lit up. Manager, can I try this fruit? Hope Van Dyne immediately pointed to the fruit of Shishui and looked at Luo Sha expectantly. Although she still has certain doubts about the devil fruit, what if it is true? Definitely is okay, Luo Sha responded very readily. Then there was no nonsense, and the sample of Shishui fruit was taken out and handed over to Hope Van Dyne. Hope Van Dyne looked at the fruit in his hand, hesitated for a moment, and then directly bit down. Well, as a result, Hope Van Dyne seemed to have been hit by a critical blow the next moment, and almost sprayed out the mouthful of fruit. What the hell is that smell? Hope Van Dyne swore that he had never eaten such an unpalatable thing in his life. But precisely because of this, Hope Van Dyne has some confidence in the devil fruit. After all, such a persuasive taste, if the devil fruit is fake, it may only have a counterproductive effect, right? Gudong. Gritting his teeth violently, he swallowed the sample of Shishui fruit with great determination, and Hope Van Dyne's eyes suddenly widened uncontrollably. Because she immediately felt the changes in her body. A miraculous change that cannot be described in words, but can be truly felt. This feeling is amazing, Hope Van Dyne murmured in disbelief. Then subconsciously squatted down, stretched out his hand, and touched the ground under his feet. The moment her hand touched the ground suddenly became liquid, without any hindrance to her hand. Hope Van Dyne's hand, as if pressed into the water, directly pressed down and sank into the ground. How can it be? This kind of thing, how is it possible? Hope Van Dyne was dumbfounded and couldn't believe his eyes at all. What did she see just now? The ground really became made of water. If she hadn't seen such a magical thing with her own eyes, she would never have believed it. Even if I saw it with my own eyes, it still felt so unreal. Devil fruit is real. This kind of miraculous thing is actually real. After repeated experiments a few times, Dyne just stood up and sighed in astonishment. As you can see from the guest, this is definitely true. Luo Sha spread her hands and smiled slightly at Dyne. It's incredible. Even now, Dyne is still amazed. Also at this moment, Dyne's attitude towards Luo Sha also underwent a 180-degree change. In her eyes before, Luo Sha was just an ordinary person, even Dyne suspected that Luo Sha was a liar. But now, in the eyes of Dyne, Luo Sha has transformed into an unfathomable expert. I'm really sorry for the store manager. I didn't see such a strange thing before, and I even suspected it was fake. Thinking about it now, I'm really ashamed. Dyne immediately apologized to Luo Sha. For this kind of thing, Luo Sha naturally wouldn't take it to heart. He waved his hand. It doesn't matter, but guest, are you planning to order shishui fruit? Or are you going to continue to look at other fruits? Shop manager, I want some fruit. Dyne made this decision right away without even thinking about it. Shishuiguo, sincerely 3 million USD. Luo Sha didn't have any nonsense, and immediately quoted the price to Dyne. Shop manager, swipe your card. Dyne quickly took out his bank card. Drop. The transaction was completed quickly. Luo Sha took out a blue devil fruit with a wave pattern and handed it to Dyne. Thank you, manager. Dyne took the shishui fruit with both hands, then took a deep breath, and immediately ate the shishui fruit. Immediately, she gains a permanent ability. Now, the wasp battle suit is no longer a problem. Don't mention how excited Dyne was. By the way, guest, I have formed a group specially for devil fruit ability users, do you want to join? After the transaction, as usual, Luo Sha asked Dyne this question again. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.